Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Welcome to Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Yeah, it's a brand new week here as we get into dinosaurs and monsters. Jason McLean is with us. We're in for a fun, weird show tonight. Best part about it, we have all of you here as well. Let us say hello to race fan in the gold medal position, Michael Morris with a silver, Kanashef Chris. A nice bronze medal tonight. Good to have you all here. Hi, Roy Boyd, Laura Lobbs, Robert Lamoth, and James Horn. James Horn will be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio, if you don't mind, to the left of the studio. Dino Bravo, Michael Fontaine, Jean Milan, bonjour. How are you, my friend? Road Flarin, Nikki from Seattle. Thank you for joining us. Hi, Dragonfly and Chris 716. Les Paul Holland. Hope you're strumming away. Jennifer Patterson, Digger Dog, and Tim Mothman and Tim Mothman's Goatee. Welcome back. Flat Six, how you doing, my friend? Is this the right line for the Woo Train? It always is, man. It always is. Scrolling on down, T-Bone, my man. What's happening? Thank you for coming on in. Lars Jansson, he's wearing Peter Forsberg's old number 21 tonight, starting at left wing from Stockholm, Sweden. Okay, here we go. Millennium, my man. Thank you for coming on in. Noble Patrick, Forrest Louis, Sandra Kincaid. Good to see you all. Purple-haired Pixie Lara, thank you for coming on in. JSCO, thank you for joining us as we continue on with our roll call tonight. Paramarv, Eternity Eternal. How you guys doing? And slow motion. Thank you for joining us, Slow Motion. Slow Motion will be signing autographs after the show as well. Light up to the right of the studio, if you don't mind, to the right of the studio, but don't go too fast for Slow Motion. Mama Catherine, mwah, I love you, my dear. I hope you're having a wonderful night. Continuing on, Kathy Evans, carried in the Woo Train. Thank you for joining us. And who else do we have here? Paul Demon, Matthew Goodka, Nellalicious. Welcome to SOR Chat. I think you're the first Nellalicious ever to be here. Paula Fast, how you doing? Or Fost, pardon me. Kurt M, Dead Fish, Bar Madison, how you guys doing? As we scroll on down, sweet Annie Svensson is back. Holy cow, that's been a while. W. David Page, Unknown Cryptid, how you guys doing? Jimmy Gonzalez, thank you for joining us. Scrolling on down, there's Skip to Malou. La 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 la. Bright. How are you, my dear? Hope you're having a great night. Can't wait to see you in Reno again. And scrolling on down. And Lala is kicking off the super chat tonight. Thank you very much, Ms. Bright, as I very much appreciate your love and support of Spaced Out Radio. Thank you, my dear. And B, good to have you here. And Dave Walters, good to see you. Vanessa, thank you for coming on in. And let's scroll on down. For the love of God, welcome to SOR Chat. And who else do we have here? River Dog, Susan F., welcome to SOR Chat. And who else is here? Juliana, thank you for coming on in. Nina Williams, Beelzebrad, good to see you both. And Bad Cop, No Donut, thank you for joining us. Little Timmy Senor will be doing the UFO report tonight. Let's get the radio side going, shall we? Hi there, and welcome to the Spaced Out Radio podcast and radio side. We very much appreciate you tuning us on in. Jason McLean will be talking dinosaurs and monsters tonight. Oh, it's going to be good. There's Bill WD-40. He's starting to lube up the chat rooms for tonight's show because you always want to go into a show nice and smooth. You don't want that rigid stuff. So he's lubing us up. Christine Minerka, welcome to SOR Chat. Thank you for joining us. If you're new here, please hit subscribe and ring that bell. We work hard for you 7 days a week. Mike Rivers and The Gong Show, how are you? And who else is here? Scrolling on down. Susan, thank you for that lovely super chat. Very much appreciate that. Thank you. And we got 9 seconds. Can we do this? Can we do this? Flat 6, thank you for the super chat as well. Very much appreciated, my man. Thank you. And you know what? Parasolo, how you doing? T2E, thanks for coming on in. Horns up. Let's rock. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. You can join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. We got a great show tonight as we look into modern dinosaurs. Are they still walking the planet? Jason McLean is here to break it all down for us. Then in hour number 3, Steve Stockton from Among the Missing comes in with another creepy story, followed up by a little Timmy Senor. He'll be back for the UFO report, filling in for Courtney Marcassani this week, who is on UFO assignment. Literally assignment. All right. Artist and biblical paranormal researcher Jason McLean lives down in Texas with his 3 children and long suffering, as he says, beautiful wife. You got to know Jason's humor to understand that one. Beyond his lifelong love of family, art, and comics, Jason's life has been consumed with the study of archaeology, cryptozoology, ufology, and astronomy in order to better understand the Bible, its teachings, and the one behind its creation. These passions have prompted him to create the Society for the Investigation and Research of the Unexplained, and the books can be found on Amazon. He has also got a great podcast all out that he's going to talk about as well. But tonight it's about dinosaurs. Are they really roaming the planet? Jason McLean, it's been a long time since we've had you on Spaced Out Radio, my man. Good day.
It has.
How you doing?
So far, so good, man. No, I appreciate you bringing me back on. It's been too long. It has definitely been too long. So real quick, I've actually officially retired from producing podcasts. So I could go back and start doing more comics. Actually sold to Antarctic Press. I can announce that officially. But yeah, we're going to be doing some more. There's going to be a lot of stuff coming out this year. So I'll come back when I have more to share. It'll be a lot. It's going to be a really good year. That's all I can say. But
I love it. Great for you. Great news.
Yeah,
it's good to start off the show.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun this year, and like I said, we're going to digital comics for the peoples, and a few other things coming down the pike.
Right on. What is your love of monsters and all things unknown?
So even a few years ago, I don't know that I would have answered it this way, but hindsight's always 50-50, and you get into things for a while and you realize, oh, well, that's why. The simple answer, and I think the truest answer, is I saw a living pterosaur when I was 12, and that sent me inexorably on this path, which brings me to you. And of course, nothing could make me happier.
Oh, yeah. Man, let's go back to when you were 12. What happened there?
So I grew up in DeSoto, Texas, which is literally a suburb of Dallas. Like the northern boundary for DeSoto is Dallas. That's where we are. Summer of '92, and I'm fishing in the 10 Mile Creek with a friend of mine. It's about 10 a.m., 10, 11. And of course, Texans are wonderful at naming at lots of things, but naming things is not one of them. So when I say it's the 10 Mile Creek, it's because it's a creek that's 10 miles long. That's what it is. And we were fishing. Long story short, we were wrapping up, and he had left. He was sort of up the hill. To explain the creek a little bit, so North Texas sits on a large limestone slab, essentially, right? And so all of the larger creeks cut into this limestone slab, and everything builds up on top of it. So, and of course, Texas is not known for its water. So all the real big brushy greenery is around the creek. So you basically have to, if you're inside the creek, no one can see you. And where we were at, the wall had collapsed, which sort of formed a bank. And it allows you to get into it. And so that's where I was. And these walls are like 15 feet high. And the creek's about 15, 20 feet wide in most places. And I'm sort of in the middle of a straightaway. So he's up and gone. I'm packed up. I'm leaving. I'm going up this collapsed stone wall. And I get just inside the tree line when I hear something. And it's a noise I've never heard before, right? So I poked my head out like, what am I hearing? Because it sounded big, and it sounded, like when you're in a tunnel, you can hear something coming towards you, right? Like you can sort of hear that. And so I was like, okay, it sounds like this thing's maybe coming here. So I poked my head out, and I see what I think is the largest blue heron I've ever seen in my life, right? And the reason for that is, when a heron flies, it has that sort of S-curve thing going on with its neck, and I kind of see what I think are its legs sticking out from behind it, and it's a bluish gray, right? It's a Payne's gray. So I'm thinking, okay, this is a really, really big blue heron, because I can see how big the wings are. It's like an 8 to 10 foot wingspan, because again, I can see where the sides of the creek are. And I'm thinking, this is the biggest blue heron I've ever seen in my life. And like I said, I'm up the embankment, so I'm high. This thing's basically about eye level, and it gets right in front of me. Its right wingtip is 5 feet from my face.
No
And
way.
that's when I realized it doesn't have feathers. And what I thought had been its legs sticking out from behind it, like when like a heron will do, I realized it was a long tail that had a flange on the end, sort of a diamond-esque shape, but more rounded. And I just watched it. Like, again, there was no real emotion besides surprise. And I just watched it fly. It never flapped its wings. It was just gliding the entire time. And it just sort of banked and turned around and went around the curve, and it was gone. I spent the next 20-ish years basically not believing my own encounter, because even though at the time I believed that there were living dinosaurs, because of the accounts that existed, they were always in these strange and exotic locales, right? It couldn't be in Dallas, Texas. I'd never heard of anything like that. This is Dallas. It's Dallas. This is not Timbuktu. It's not Scotland or the Congo. This is one of the largest conurbations in the United States. So I don't even believe myself. And here's where it gets terrible, right? Later, I think it was like the next year, I watched The Mysterious Origins of Man, and I hear for the first time about pterosaur sightings in the state of Texas. And I still didn't believe it, because it was all South Texas.
Right.
And the thing, again, people are like, well, I know Texas. No, Texas is massive. If you tell me something's in South Texas, particularly the Rio Grande Valley, great. That's 500-600 miles away. And on top of the most of the way the pterosaurs were sort of described, they sounded like pteranodons. What I saw was not a pteranodon. It was sort of in the family of Rhamphorhynchus. They're smaller. They don't tend to have crests, as far as we know. Scaphognathus is thought to have one, but they have long tails. And again, so it's like, okay, well, they're seeing pteranodons. The odds of there being two different pterosaurs still living in Texas seems insane. Particularly, they're hundreds and hundreds of miles away. And it gets worse. So I had known Ken Gerhardt for a couple of years before I eventually tell him my story, only to find out, hey, yeah, people are seeing these things in southern Oklahoma. And by the way, they look the exact same way what you described looked. In fact, one guy made a model. He showed it to me. And he has the S-curve thing with the neck going on in his model. And that's when it clicked. I couldn't believe my own encounter because I'm like, okay, maybe I missaw something or I hallucinated something. I couldn't believe it because I hadn't heard of anyone seeing these very specific details. And then here it is, Ken's showing me this guy making a model. And that's the number one detail where it's like, this guy saw this thing. So here we are today, and now I've got probably over a dozen sightings here just in North Texas and southern Oklahoma, where it is clear what they are seeing was a similar creature to mine. Maybe not the exact same one, but clearly in the family. And there seems to be a migration pattern from North Texas, from literally the DFW area, out through Crosbyton to New Mexico. Crosbyton is still in Texas. It's like a 5-hour drive. But there's a lot of consistency in size, certain colorations, that it goes beyond, okay, we're all having, there's no way we're all having the same hallucination, particularly if something this obscure, right? When people hallucinate, they tend to hallucinate things that are a little more common, things that are in the zeitgeist a little more. When people think of a pterosaur, they think of a pteranodon. That's what not Godzilla. That's what King Kong fought, right? It was a pteranodon. That's what the Flintstones hung around with, right? Raquel Welch got kidnapped by a pteranodon. So when people think of pterosaurs, they're thinking pteranodons. They're not thinking these rhamphorhynchus, smaller with this weird S curve. And again, no one's ever drawn an S-curve shape neck where they sort of hold the head on, like, if here's the shoulders, the head goes back in, you can kind of see the neck coming out like that. No one's ever drawn that because no one's ever thought that they would do something like that. So these are unique features that people who are seeing these things are describing. And it was sort of in that moment where I'm like, okay, I need to step in and start doing this because no one else is. And what shocked me was when I was working on my most recent book, which is a couple years old now. What shocked me was how quickly I found accounts of these creatures. I didn't have to look hard. Everyone was just afraid to talk about it. That's all it was. No one wants to be the crazy person that saw a living pterosaur. That's it. That's the end of the story. And by the way, that was my story. I didn't want to be the crazy guy who saw the pterosaur. I couldn't be the person who saw a pterosaur because they don't live in Dallas, Texas, but apparently these things are all over the world and specifically North America. So there we have it.
For you, I mean, trying to hold on to a secret that you'd seen a live dinosaur as a kid. I mean, everybody is probably going to say to you, that's just your imagination. You're 12 years old. Your imagination is still running wild as a kid, and played on down. How did you keep it a secret? What made you think that this wasn't something that maybe you should talk about at the time?
Because I had the same thought. It really was. I had the exact same. It's like I couldn't have seen what I saw. That was it. That's the end of the conversation. It's like I didn't believe my own sighting. And I think there's a lot of people who are in that situation where you see what the world tells you is impossible. You can't believe it. There's that cognitive, like I said, I had known Ken Gerhart, a man who literally wrote the book Big Bird, Pterosaurs in Texas. And on the cover is a ramfractoid with the tail and everything. And I still was like, yeah, nah, that's not a thing. I couldn't have seen it. That's how it really was. Just I kept it because I didn't believe it. That's it. I think so many people have that same story where it's not that they're keeping the secret for any real reason beyond they themselves don't believe that it's possible. I'm here to tell you, a lot of these things are a lot more possible than we realize. The world is stranger than we're told that it is.
Did you ever talk to Jonathan Whitmore or Whitcomb, pardon me, about it? He's a famed pterodon investigator out of the state of Texas.
Yes, I'm very aware of him. I've never had a chance to. We've communicated a little bit, but not as directly as I would like.
Yeah, he'd be a good one because he believes these creatures are pterodons that called the ropin, that you can actually see them flying at night because they have like a glowing light in their chest, a red light in their chest, and it looks like these orbs. Did it have any other distinct features like that?
So again, my sighting was during the day, so I can't. Yeah, so in fact, all with the exception of one sighting that I've collected, every sighting that I'm like, okay, this is definitely what they saw happened in the day and within less than 100 feet. There's plenty of people who said, it's like it was, hundreds of feet out or hundreds of yards out. I'm like, okay, cool, I'll put it down. All of the accounts that I'm like, okay, these are the real thing. Broad daylight, except for one, it was literally in front of her car. And so it flew in front of the high beams. Everyone else, broad daylight with under 100 feet. No chance that these things are being mistaken for something else. And they're all describing it the same way with the same features. Everyone says it looked like I thought it was a pelican at first, or a crane, or a heron. And then I got a closer look. And so it really is one of those things where, how do I say this? All of the best stories I have are in broad daylight. However, yes, the ropin from Papua New Guinea is believed to be able to bioluminesce. You got the Van Meter visitor, right? That had the story is that it could actually project this light, and that they saw it as some sort of a weapon. And again, that maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. We don't know. I do, however, have an account of someone from South Texas. I have it in the book. He calls them birds. He does not call them pterosaurs. He calls them birds. However, he saw he called them sparks coming out of the upper torso. He thought it was like the eyes and mouth. He called them sparks, but this is some form of bioluminescence. I cover this in Metroplex Monsters. Where I was in DeSoto, you have a very short jaunt over to Cedar Hill, Texas, where literally it's called Witch Mountain. It's the highest point in North Texas. That's where you have all the radio towers, right? There's a long history of ghost lights in and around the area, and there were several videos taken very recently. I think the latest one was 2015 of what appeared to be two lights in the sky, just sort of lazily hanging around the area, just sort of moving around, right? No, one of them was even in front of a storm. So it's 2015. You have a storm coming in. Probably not going to be drones, but like a light would go out and then it would come back over here. They were described as UFOs, but their behavior seemed more organic. Like if you're watching vultures or circle in the sky, that's the pattern that they were making, but they were just these lights. So I can't say that these things are able to bioluminesce. What I can say is there's enough connection between the location of these sightings and there's enough sort of observed of other similar creatures having a bioluminescence to them that I can't say that they can't bioluminesce. In fact, I'd put money down that they could. Maybe not too much money, but I'd definitely put a wager down that they have some form of bioluminescence.
Jason, we got about 4 minutes to go here before
Mhm.
we have to go to break tonight. How did this turn into a lifelong passion that you needed answers for? Because I
Mhm.
understand with your experience, we all want answers. I want
Yeah.
answers to my own experiences. But for you, it's become a passion, it's become a desire to try and believe what's going on. What do you think in the short term answer here is
Mhm.
going on with these sightings?
Uh, Probably the easiest way to describe this is from the reason it became a passion is I think that these cryptozoology in general, as well as all these others, they have this research allows us to understand the world we live in better. We are told that the world is one way, right? I think that when we understand how these creatures fit into the world, we will actually have a better understanding of what the world really is. How does it really operate? And so for me, a lot of this has just come down to it's not just I need the answers, these are answers that mean something to people. Because this is, again, why couldn't I believe that this was real? Well, because I hadn't heard anybody talk about this stuff. Lots of people have never heard of living pterosaurs. Everyone's heard of Bigfoot, right? Everyone's heard of Dogman and all these others, but most people have never heard of these living pterosaurs. But we have accounts of them all throughout history. In fact, a lot of what we call dragons are just living dinosaurs and accounts of them being seen, killed, uh, feared for centuries. Of course, obviously, you've always got these, the mythical stories, but then you have these stories where they're just like, hey, this thing came in and we killed it and it was weird, right? And they just called it a dragon. You look at the descriptions and it fits a lot of these uh, features that we are only now discovering in dinosaurs, like theropods having feathers. And so, of course, the question becomes, well, how could these things be still around after millions of years? Well, the answer is, what if it isn't millions of years? What if that's one of the reasons that we are not allowed to talk about these things is that they call into question mainstream beliefs about the world that we live in?
Mm. How has it changed your perspective on life? And I know
Mhm.
you are a very scholarly biblical person. How has
Mhm.
that changed your direction towards the Bible and what you believe is said in uh, in the book?
So a lot of it would be more taking things seriously, but maybe not necessarily always as literally as we're that some would like it to be, right? Um, because they often the authors were writing within their own cultural context. And what it's shown me is, hey, take it seriously, understand the cultural context, and not just from the Bible, but all of human history. They are writing within a given context, just like we are. If you understand that, you can start to see what they're actually seeing. And what happens is there are patterns throughout history that really start to resonate. And if all of these things are true, then maybe there's a bigger story happening here than what the modern world would want us to know, what the modern world is telling us the world is. If that's the case, then we can actually start to understand it and then understand our place in that world.
Yeah, that's a tough one is trying to understand what we are all about. I mean, what humanity is all about, what everything is all about.
Mhm.
Because these cryptid creatures, whether it's dinosaurs, whether it's Bigfoot, Dogman, Chupacabra,
Mhm.
whatever it may be, people are having these experiences. Not everybody is seeing a dog with mange or a
Right.
hairless bear or something along those lines.
Mhm.
People are actually having true mystical encounters. Whether that's seeing into another dimension, whether that's seeing into another portal, or
Mhm.
whether they are actually walking along our timeline, that's some of the biggest questions that we need to know. And we're going to check out more about dinosaurs roaming planet Earth right now. Jason McLean, researcher, cryptozoologist, ufologist, is with us tonight. Hard to believe that was a quick 30 minutes. We will be right back on Spaced Out Radio right after this. So stay tuned. Dinosaur Talk right after this. All right, Jay, we're clear.
Cool. You always
That
have
was
the best bumper music.
Yeah. Yeah. I wish that if it wasn't for social media, I would switch it
Mhm.
up, because with the radio stations that we are broadcasting on, I can
Mhm.
use any music I want, because we have the music license with
Oh,
them,
yeah, yeah. Mhm.
but because of social media, I can't use
Yeah.
other music in order to do that because of the
Mhm.
copyright.
Yes.
So it's it's a little bit more difficult there. Stargazer, how you doing? And who else has joined us here? Just scrolling on up. All right, we got Hot Liquid Magma. Thank you for joining us. Hey, I know we got a lot of fresh new faces in our chat room tonight, and thank you very much for joining us. And maybe this is your first time here. Don't forget to hit subscribe, ring that bell, as we are here 7 days a week for your listening entertainment. We are, just so you know, a hybrid between a live YouTube show, a live podcast, and a live terrestrial radio show, which is why we need to take commercial breaks to time everything out with our radio stations. You're the lucky ones, though, because you actually get to hear what we chat about behind the scenes and see what goes on. So we appreciate that. We hope we earn enough to have you hit that subscribe button and ring that bell. Hi, Barbara Mora. Welcome to SOR Chat. And yeah, become a regular. We're a lot of fun here. I do want to remind all of our listeners that everyone is invited to the third annual SOR fan party in Reno, Nevada, May 10th through 12th, just a few months away. Tickets are on sale now. VIP tickets are $100. You get a VIP bag with a bunch of swag in it. You get invited and hang out with all our celebrities that you've heard on this show that will be there uh, in the VIP party. And we got a rundown of our schedule here. I want to let all of
Oh,
you know
really?
about our schedule. And Jason, if you want to come, the door is open. We'd love to have you there. And let's go.
I'll have to think about it.
Absolutely. It's for everybody, you know? And let's see here. Where is it? Where do I have it here? All right. So Friday, May 10th from 3 to 6 p.m. You got to arrive early on Friday or maybe Thursday night. Okay, 3 to 6 p.m. We are doing the live radio YouTube show where myself, Rob G, and Jessica Jones will host our special guests on the air. Friday night at 9 p.m. is the VIP party with our fans and special guests in attendance. Saturday, you could go on a paranormal tour with Merle to Virginia City and
Ooh.
the paranormal group Bats of the Belfry, who are going to take you on a tour of the Washoe and other haunted buildings. Saturday night is our Skywatch. Melinda Leslie is going to be there with her night vision, going to try and find some UFOs over northern Nevada. So you can take part in that. Sunday, if you're not heading home and you're hanging out till Monday with us, it's party day. It's party day from the time we wake up till the time we go to bed and take our flights for the next morning. So that is our event. So far, we have R. Keith Andrews, Science Bob, Lala Bright, Melinda Leslie, Tim Senor, Merle, Lorian Fenton, Kevin Day, Jim Goodall, Tom Whitmore, all confirmed. We are waiting for more. We are waiting for more to come and join us as well. And hopefully we'll get some answers soon from some great people that want to come hang out with you. And remember, if you want to take, let's say Jason shows up and you want to go for dinner with Jason, you go to Jason, hey, we're going for dinner here. And Jason's going to say, you know what? I'm going to come hang out with you guys, have some dinner. We'll talk some monsters over dinner. Or if you want to have a beer with Melinda Leslie and talk some UFOs, you do it. You want to have breakfast with Tom Whitmore or Science Bob, you do it. That's why we do it. We do it for the audience, So Jason can attest to this. $100 for a VIP is incredibly cheap compared to
It
what
is.
are going for right now. And the
Mhm.
best part about it is when you go to a conference, you don't know if you're going to actually get to talk to the person you want to talk to.
Yeah.
Okay. At ours, it's guaranteed. It's guaranteed because they're all there for you. So come hang out with us in Reno, Nevada. Info@spacedoutradio.com. info@spacedoutradio.com is the website, or pardon me, is the information. And VIP tickets must be purchased by April 10th. So make sure you get on them today. Thank you so much to our super chatters tonight, Lala, Susan F, Flat Six, and T-Bone. Here we go, everyone, with the second half hour. Second half hour, Spaced Out Radio is now underway. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears. Reminder to all of you that if you miss portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Here is author, researcher, cryptozoologist Jason McLean is with us, hanging on out, talking modern day dinosaurs. All after a sighting when he was a kid. Now he's chasing dinosaurs and monsters. Jason, it's quite a life, my man. Quite a life.
It is. And, it is one of those things where I think we all have to have that one thing, right, that we can chase to try and make the world a better place. Obviously, this is not the only thing I do, but it's the one thing that is unique to me. And that's what I'm trying to make happen, right, is to... Because if you get that one thing that says, hey, this isn't the world around you isn't what you think it is, you're more important than what they tell you you are. There's far more to all of this than appears. I think that's something that's worth chasing.
Okay, so we know you believe in Bigfoot. We know you believe in Dogman and a number of these creatures. Dinosaurs, though, for the most part, we're all sitting here like, Jason, what are you talking about? There's no pterodactyls. There's no T-Rexes. There's no Triceratops. You can't be like the Flintstones and order a Brontosaurus burger at the local burger joint.
Yep.
What are you on here? I mean, I'm sure you get that.
Oh, all the time. And I would say that my view on Bigfoot, Dogman, that's a lot more nuanced than just a yes or no. But yeah, and again, those are more culturally acceptable, right? Because in a lot of ways, they don't really cause the same degree of conflict with the worldview that the modern world wants us to have. And it's not just the modern world. It is very specifically there is a worldview that our governments want to put out. That's what's in all the textbooks. It's what's allowed to be discussed, right? It's sort of the official narrative. Living dinosaurs throws a huge monkey wrench into that worldview. And you're right. The number one reason, though, that we say, oh, that can't be, is because they supposedly died out 65 million years ago. Well, if they're hanging out largely unchanged, maybe that 65 million years ain't as 65 million years as we think. We may be dealing with a shorter timetable. And that throws a lot of things into question that we were told, no, this is how reality is. This is what the world is. This is your place in it. It throws all of that out the window. And so what we do is we take all these accounts throughout history of people running across creatures that they call dragons and said, oh, well, that's all mythology. Okay, well, so was the panda. The panda was mythology. The gorilla was mythology, according to the scientists of the day, right? People have seen these creatures for centuries, and they have informed our... Very recently, we said, no, not anymore. No more of this. This is forbidden. No more contact with this stuff. And when someone sees it, you get called crazy. And you shut up. And that's how they've been able to create this illusion of that's not really out there.
Is that fair?
Ain't nothing fair about life, my friend. That's just what it is, right? Sorry, my allergies are acting up today. I'm in Austin. We're traveling, and I forgot my antihistamines, and there's a lot of weed in the area. So, yeah, I am allergic to the wacky tobacco, and of course, it's Austin, so everyone's smoking it. And so, yeah, is it fair? No, but life ain't fair, and sometimes you just got to take that hit, because if I take the hit, then someone's going to stand up and say, "Hey, I saw this thing," and then someone else is going to come out and say it. Because, like I said, as soon as I did it, a lot of people came and said, "Hey, I saw this thing. Can you, like, this is what happened to me?" And I'm like, "I've known you for 15 years. How have you never told me this?" I had a friend that I've known forever. He actually had he had his encounter like right after my book was published, and he's like, "Okay," I had to pry it out of him because he had just had his encounter, and he's like, "Okay, so if anyone comes to you talking about like a Mothman," because he still doesn't think they're pterosaurs, he doesn't believe it. His encounter literally happened like a quarter mile from where mine did, flew right over his head. And he said, "Hey, if someone talks about Mothman, can you let me know?" It took me weeks to pry it out of him. And he's still like, "I don't know what it is." And I'm like, "Look, I get it. You don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. I can't prove it. All I can say is this is what it appears to be, right? I can just say it appears to be a ramfractoid until we have a body, or really a living one is what I would like. But until we have that, I can't say what it actually is. I can just say what it appears to be. However, what it appears to be seems to pop up throughout human history, as well are other creatures that match what we seem to think other dinosaurs appeared to look like, all throughout human history. And these stories aren't, "Oh, it was hoarding gold and spitting fire." No, it's just like, "Hey, I was out with my cattle, and this little dragon walked up and hissed at him and scared him, so I hit it on the head and it died." So this is a true story. A French farmer takes this little dragon. He didn't mean to kill it. It was just so small. He just hit it on its head because it spooked his cattle. That was it. He was just trying to drive it off, but it died. He put it up and took it to Paris, where it stood on display for over a century. Interestingly enough, there's a lot of detail in this. I'll be coming out with, again, one of the cool things that's coming out this year. I'll have all the details on it. But the most important thing is, prior to this event in the late 1500s, dragons in Europe, when they drew the tails, they looked like a snake's tail. They were just came to a point. That was it. It is after this event that we start seeing what we would consider the dragon tail, where you have that little diamond shape at the end. The reason that's really, really important is because at this point, this is when it emerges in heraldic art. It's exactly at this time when this creature goes on display. People start doing wyverns as heraldic art. Again, a wyvern is a very specific type of dragon. It has one pair of wings, one pair of legs, a long tail, and then they start adding this triangular design at the end. Also, classic wyverns have a little spike coming out of their nose. That seems like a little fanciful addition. However, a ramfractoid is, in fact, the name Rhamphorhynchus means tooth-beaked. They were reptilians. They weren't technically dinosaurs. They were flying reptiles. One of their distinguishing features, aside from the long tail and the little flange at the end, is they have a little tooth that comes out of their nose, making it look like a beak. It's at this time that the dragon tail enters into art history. Now, for us, it's a commonplace thing, but it was a brand new development. So my question would be, we have a dragon that's killed, and this one feature that is only seen in this one type of dinosaur emerges into art at that time. That's not a coincidence. And when you look at, again, the classic depictions of the wyvern from this time period, a lot of the key features match up with what you would find with a rhamphorhactoid pterosaur. We look throughout history, we find all kinds of these little details where, sure, could it be possibly a coincidence? You can't entirely rule it out, but it's certainly not a. It certainly starts becoming more and more implausible the more often it occurs. A great example of this is also the cockatrix. It is a dragon that, again, so has sort of fallen out of favor. I think some Dungeons and Dragons people have sort of brought it back into the cultural zeitgeist as of late. But it's originally described as a dragon that has the head and upper body of a chicken. Sounds entirely ridiculous, right? Here's this dragon, and you got a chicken head and chicken wings on it. But then the rest of the body is, 2 legs and a long tail, and it's a dragon. Really weird sounding creature. Let me ask one question. You lived in, let's say, Persia or Germany 3,000 years ago. How you describe something like an oviraptor? For those of you who are unfamiliar, just think of a velociraptor from Jurassic Park, but with a beak and a crest on its head. We now know, and this has been a development within the last really 20 to 30 years, that theropods like velociraptors, Tyrannosaurus, T-Rex, they had feathers. So you're living in Persia, 3,000, it's the Bronze Age, maybe late Iron Age, and you see this thing. It looks like a reptile, but it has a beak, and it's got feathers on its head and on its arms. How do you describe that to somebody? You would say it looked like a dragon, but with the head and arms of a chicken. This is how this story has played out. People encounter dragons. They describe them with the language that they had available. The artists of the time, because remember, none of these artists are actually looking and seeing these creatures, then depicting them naturally. They're getting these stories second, third, fourth hand sometimes, and they just take them literally. And then they're rendered that way. And then that's how it gets into everyone's head that this is what a dragon looks like. So we reject these stories as mythical, even though they were taken seriously at the time, but we overlook the fact that they are clearly describing things that we know from fossil evidence existed. And we often do that because if they were around,
right,
then our history is wrong.
Do you think that what people are seeing is logically happening today around the planet, not just in Texas or in North America, but around the world? I mean, you look at the sea monsters people see, whether it's Loch Ness or Lake Champlain. You think of Africa in the Congo with Makili Mbembe, a giant dinosaur, it looks like a miniature brontosaurus that's walking through the woods there. But it's in such a dense, dangerous area, not only for disease, for people who are not common to the area, but it's war-torn in that area as well.
Yes.
It's damn near impossible to actually investigate there outside of a week or two. So I'm just wondering, when you look at all the evidence that's out there where people have been seeing these creatures, is it our imagination? Are we looking into a different time realm while we're seeing these? Or are they living, walking, and breathing right now with you and I?
So I'm on on any given day, I'm 30 seconds away from saying it's all paranormal, and walking away. Because as soon as it's on that side of it's like you can't objectively observe it. That all you can say is it's on that side of the veil, we're done. However, the reason I can't say that about these is we have a history of them being killed. and put on display. We have consistency of description that we don't typically get with paranormal phenomena, right? With paranormal phenomena, it tends to be, there's a lot of overlap, but there's a lot of specific details that tend to be very, very different, right? Very, very much up to the interpretation of the person observing it. With this, though, particularly the pterosaurs that I've personally investigated and several other creatures, it's very clear that people are describing the same creature over and over and over and over again. That kind of consistency is what you would expect with a living, breathing population of creature, albeit a very small population, right? Again, I live in North Texas. Painted buntings are not, it's a small little bird. They're very, very pretty. They're not endangered. They're all supposed to be all over the place. I've literally never seen one, but they're all over the place. If you have a creature that has a very, very small population and perhaps is actually even traveling at night mostly, but when it flies around, again, it's a reptile, so it doesn't have to fly all that often, right? It's not a warm-blooded creature. It doesn't have to hunt all the time. But when they are in motion, if most people, when they see it, if they're just going to assume that, like I did at first, that they're looking at a crane or a pelican or something else, right? That it looks like something they're familiar with, they're going to go right back to driving or looking at this stupid thing, the phone for those who are listening, right? They're going to go back and just ignore it. The only reason the encounter, with the exception of one person, the only reason the encounters I had recognized them for what they were was because they looked twice. There was just enough weird about it, or they were in just the right situation to say, oh, I'll take a closer look at this. And then it's like, oh, hey, that's not what I expected it to be. Just like my story. I think these things may even be seen a little bit more often than we realize, but people don't recognize them for what they are because they look so much like cranes and pelicans, etc. But then, yeah, you have things like Mokele and Bembe and others where they're just in locations that are very, very hard to get to. People think, oh, we have drones and all these things now. The Congo, very specifically, forget that, the fact that it's a war-torn area is a big, big deal. But under the best possible option, and if everyone were to stop shooting at you, the best you could do a real good search on is 1 linear mile a day. It is a massive, massive swamp, hundreds of miles across. And you can get 1 linear mile, not 1 square mile searched, 1 linear mile searched. That's nothing. That's absolutely nothing. And so in a lot of cases, these creatures, again, I don't think all of the ones throughout history have, all those species have survived. I think a lot of things have gone extinct over the last 1,000 years, probably even earlier than that, which is why we don't necessarily have the same dragons reappearing every time, right? There's a real good consistent history with the rhamphoractoids. But a lot of these others, they seem to have died off about 1,000, 2,000 years ago. And again, one would expect that if it's a small population. Ask yourself this: how many creatures that we would have no problem believing existed, right? Types of dogs and camels and all kinds of things. If they went extinct, say, even 500 years ago, there's no fossil evidence of them, right? Fossilization, it takes, honestly, fossilization takes water, lots of water, and heavy mineralization to occur. So unless what kills that animal fossilizes it, it's never going to turn into a fossil. So if something goes extinct 500 years ago, if there's no fossil evidence of it, there's everyone's going to say it's a mythical creature that these indigenous people were talking about. It's just mythical because there's no evidence of something like that, right? Well, of course not, because there's not going to be. So any dinosaur that's been walking around for the last 3,000 years isn't going to fossilize. There isn't going to be a record of it. All that's going to be left are people talking about it. And there are stories of when they record them saying, hey, we killed this thing. Sometimes they ate this thing and they got sick. My favorite story is actually the Dragon of Rhodes, because that's literally in the records of a particular monastery. It happened during the Crusades. So there was this order of monk knights, right? It's during the Crusades, and they're protecting the island of Rhodes, but a dragon is on the island, and it's causing all kinds of havoc. So, of course, the knights are like, well, hey, we'll just go kill this thing, and we'll do our job. We're supposed to be protecting the island anyway. They go out. A bunch of them get killed by this thing. They retreat. One of the soldiers, it takes offense to this. Like, okay, we need to get everybody out there, and we got to kill this thing. The guy who was leading that particular monastery, the guy who was in charge of everything, said, no, our orders aren't to kill dragons. Our orders are to protect it from the Moors. So he forbids anyone from fighting this dragon. So this dude goes AWOL, goes home, spends every dollar it wasn't a dollar, it's probably just gold, right? But he spends all of the wealth that he has arming himself, getting better armor, and he creates this training dragon to fight. He spends an entire year fighting this training dragon, comes back, kills the creature. The head of this creature is put on display at the main city gate. People record it for about 100 years. Here's where it gets interesting. This dude is imprisoned for violating the head knight's orders. He's like, no, you went AWOL for a year, dude. We're over here. We're in the middle of a war, and you go AWOL. You're going to prison. So this knight sends a letter to the Pope and says, I killed a dragon. This is a big deal. Like, why am I in prison? Like, I get that I broke, I was ordered to stay and not do this, but this dragon killed a bunch of our people. It's been terrorizing this island. I did my job as a good Christian knight to kill a dragon and slay a dragon. The Pope offers him clemency. He eventually becomes the head of the order after the guy who had him imprisoned dies years later. So he eventually becomes the head of the order because he was a dragon slayer. This knight's tombstone, it's still there in Rhodes. It literally reads Draconis Extinctor, Dragon Slayer. All of this is recorded in the documents of that monastery. Some people have tried to say, well, maybe it was just like a saltwater, alligator or crocodile. Well, here's the problem. They knew what saltwater crocodiles were. They knew how to kill those things. So why is this one creature? And by the way, in the documents, it doesn't describe it as looking like a saltwater crocodile. Again, they knew what that was. They looked at this and said, this thing is a dragon. It's different. It's even described as having something that looks like wings on it. But it's some kind of large reptilian creature that was so deadly that it killed numerous knights. Let's forget about the fact that there were hunters and all kinds of people on the island of Rhodes that would have wanted it dead anyway. So this was a very large, dangerous reptile that was unknown to anyone. It is fully recorded, fully documented. Unfortunately, we just don't have the skull because it's gone. This happened over 1,000 years ago. But how many accounts do we have like that? How many of these things were killed and people talk about seeing the bones? But again, it's lost to time because things decay and they go away and they get lost.
Jason, I'm going to get you to hold on right there because we are going to go to break here at the top of the hour. Modern dinosaurs, what are people seeing? Are there sea monsters abound? Are there little mini fossila-raptors running around? We'll get that from Jason next on Spaced Out Radio. Our guest tonight, Jason McLean, looking into dinosaurs in modern day time on Spaced Out Radio. Very good information tonight, Jay. Very deep and good information. Thank you.
No, thank you. I'm just so sorry that my allergies are killing
Oh,
are
that's all
killing
right.
me. It's
All right.
it's getting worse as the time seems to drag on here.
Take a break. I'm gonna keep Dirty Filth on the screen here. Dirty, if you're there, you can pop on in.
There we go.
Look at this. Oh, what do you
Look at the night crawlers, Dave.
You need to turn your TV down. So.
Hold on a second. Oh God!
Look at this. Look at this. There you go. A couple of night crawlers happening. Dirty, take us away, my friend.
I like that. I want to crawl into your heart. It's adorable.
Sorry about that. I just thought I was going to do a whole bunch of Valentine's themed cryptids. So I asked some friends of mine what I should do today first. They picked Nightcrawler.
So funny story. I actually did a draw. I can never remember the name of that show. They do these little. It's on I think it's on the History Channel. There's a guy who sits at the table and they pull up these stories and they talk. Anyway, they did one on the night crawlers and they asked me to do. So I did the artwork for them for their night crawler episode.
Awesome. I just think they're interesting.
They're an interesting thing, man. Like it's just one of those weird things that pops up and you're like, what do you do with this? How do you even interpret something like a night crawler?
Yeah. I try to explain it to people, and I usually just say the best way to explain it is it's just a pair of looks like walking pants almost. Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing, right? Like, again, so much of this would make my life easier if we could be like, nope, those were just straight up faked, right? So much easier. But the problem is there's enough there that says, no, this isn't, these weren't faked. And there's enough there to say, hey, this may be a real phenomena. But again, what do you do with it? Right? That's the issue, because we have nothing in the fossil record that looks like these things. So I don't know that we can say that we're dealing with a naturally occurring creature. So then it's like, okay, maybe the reason we don't have physical evidence is because they're not naturally occurring.
It's a pretty good way to explain it. And maybe they're not really, maybe they're like almost like a fish. So if they died on land, there wouldn't be very many bones or anything that would be around long enough for anybody to stumble across or something to that effect. And how do you even go look for them to begin with?
Oh, exactly. Well, and again, what if they're not material in the way we think of them, right? If we're dealing with something that's just sort of how it appeared at that moment. So I don't know. And again, what if they're cartilaginous? So even if they do die, it's gone. There's nothing to find later. It just goes away.
I did get that email. I apologize. I had to dig back on my pile of emails. I'll get you a message and everything sent back as soon as possible. Somebody was rambling about email, and the chat moves so fast. I'm not a super pro like Dave and be able to keep track of all the craziness. But what do you think about those night crawlers? Do you think they're like holographic or something?
I'm always happy to say I don't know.
It's always nice to have a good mystery.
Yeah. It's like, hey, all we know is that we have the information we have, and that's what we got. And until something new pops up, I'm happy to say it's a mystery and leave it there. Hopefully someone will catch one and put it in a nice little bag, and so we can start looking at like what's going on here. And of course, if it doesn't, stay in the bag by itself, then maybe it
just grows arms and rips out of the bag, and then the arms disappear afterwards.
Yeah. Or maybe it just dematerializes.
I wonder how they eat.
Good, Dirty.
Hi,
Looking
Dave.
good.
Maybe they don't.
Dirty, has there been a blob sighting?
No cats could even be bothered with me today.
Jeez. You know, Blob's fans need her.
I don't know. I don't even know where she is, to be honest.
Gee whiz.
I'm going to go capture her right now. Have a good night, gentlemen.
All right. See you, Dirty Phil. Thank you for your great work. Hi, Brianne. How you doing? And we want to remind everybody that you can shop at our Spaced Out Radio store on our website. We do not have ugly swag, people. Nothing ugly on our website. You can actually wear our clothing out in public and be proud of it. Yeah, because we got good stuff there. All right. The other thing, too, reminder, May 10th through 12th, 2024, we are in Reno, Nevada for the 3rd annual SOR fan party. You can get more information at info@spacedoutradio.com. Info@spacedoutradio.com. And, of course, thank you to our super chatters, Pam, Dave, Louie, T-Bone, Flat Six, Susan, and Lala. Hi, Castle Dude. How you doing? And here we go with the next hour.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Here we go with hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Dave Scott. Always appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hi to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. ECLAT. ECLAT is your password. Use it wisely, space travelers, as the Clam sets a password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. We continue on tonight with author and researcher Jason McLean. Dinosaurs in modern day. Are they still roaming the planet? Jason, thank you so much for being here tonight.
Oh no, it's my pleasure, Dave. Always happy to come on and hang with you in your beautiful head of hair.
Yeah, it is. You know, it's a little thick tonight. But nothing a little baseball cap can't cure tonight. I can tell you that. But Jason, I have heard stories of people in Texas, Louisiana, seeing miniature T-Rexes running around,
Yes.
seeing miniature velociraptors running around. What is going on here?
So, okay, quick, interesting point. Most people, when we hear the word velociraptor, we think of the thing from the Jurassic Park movies. That is not what a velociraptor really looked like. They were much, much smaller, actually. So if people are seeing velociraptors, then they're actually seeing their actual size. That having been said, one thing we should always take into account is that when people see something unfamiliar, right? Don't get hung up necessarily in the terminology. Well, this guy says it was a T-Rex, but this guy over here says it's a velociraptor. They're probably describing the same thing, right? But again, they're using the language that they have available. What they are describing is a theropod, a two-legged dinosaur, right? That's the important part here. Now, what are they actually seeing? I don't know. We don't have the same history of reliable accounts that we have with like the pterosaurs and a few other cryptids, right? So, what are they seeing? I don't know. Could they actually be seeing something like the night crawlers? that it just appears that way. That they're just using the language that they have. They're seeing something new, and they're like, well, I know what a dinosaur looks like. Maybe it's something like that, and that's the way they're coming to it. Or maybe there is a species of bipedal dinosaur running around that we're unfamiliar with, and we just haven't. But they're small enough population, mobile enough that people just don't see them, and when they do see them, it's like, what do I do with this, right? So, and again, until we have a larger data set, it's hard to know what they're seeing. And here's where things get even worse. What if it's not a dinosaur at all that they're seeing? It's just something that appears to be a dinosaur to them, right? Like I said, I'm 30 seconds away from saying any given day, it's all paranormal and walking away. But it could be some form, again, could be an exotic bird that perhaps looks, again, it's just they're unfamiliar with. But the problem is, in this day and age, you're saying it looks like a T-Rex or Velociraptor, probably looks a lot like a dinosaur, meaning reptilian. So we've got some options out there. I wish there was more information to have. Unfortunately, there just isn't on those. And believe me, no one would be happier to know that there was a bipedal dinosaur still running around than I would. Also, because I think they'd be a lot easier to catch than the pterosaurs that seem to be able to disappear into the clouds. Because I think that would, hopefully it'd be a lot easier to catch. So I would really like for those stories to be true. And I'm always hopeful, but unfortunately there just isn't the data that we have with some other creatures on that.
Right. One of the things that kind of invites me into enjoying a lot of this is the theory of the Thunderbird, which is another dinosaur-like creature, although, much closer to us, 40-foot bird, with a, or with a 40-foot wingspan, pardon me. Okay. It's of native legend and lore. Okay. One that I think there could be something to that. And of course, the Thunderbird is legendary, not in the United States, capped off by the U.S. Air Force Thunderbirds as well. Now, one of the things that I think about this, and this is what, and it sounds gross, but every time I talk about the Thunderbird, I have to bring this up. If that thing pooped, man, it would paint a car. It would paint a side of a building. There would be trees painted in white all over the place where these things are. Okay.
Well, the thing is, the scat would actually be the best evidence of anything, right?
Absolutely.
Because you'd get DNA from it. And of course, there's a material thing that you can point at and say, hey, here is material evidence of this creature. So one quick little thing. I'm actually not a fan of the name Thunderbird for these really massive birds, and here's why. There's a big move or sort of a preconceived notion in a lot of cryptozoology that everything from the lore of other cultures must have had some material presence for it, right? And while that's true in a number of times, in a number of ways, I think it also limits our scope as to what we're dealing with. And I think what happens is, okay, so are the Thunderbirds, are they these pterosaurs, or is it a teratorn? Teratorns are actually birds. They're giant condors. Essentially, it's a condor with a wingspan the size of a bus, right? And so we get into these. Well, what were the American Indians seeing? And the problem is the Thunderbird legend itself. It's a storm god, right? And in some cultures, it's even a creator god. But it's often more often than not, a type of storm god. And seems to be depicting a storm deity rather than just a creature. And again, I think those cultures deserve that enough respect to treat them the way we would want Greek history treated and Greek mythology treated, and viewed that way. But also, I think the problem is we tend to get caught up in the name Thunderbird. I don't care if you call them Thunderbirds. It's not, but it's one of those things where I think it often limits our possibilities, because what if there's more than one thing flying around out there, right? Because how often do we hear about these giant birds? In fact, For every one pterosaur story I have 3 big bird sightings. Now, does that mean that they saw a pterosaur, or does it mean they saw a teratorn or something else entirely? I don't know, but they're describing them as giant birds, often at night, coming out of the desert. Wingspan, they don't have the fine details, so we don't know if it's actually feathers or if it's a leathery wings, but a wingspan that covers the entire highway, a 2-lane highway in the middle of nowhere. So people are seeing these things, and again, for every one pterosaur, I got 3 of these, and so many just random people have this story of, I saw this massive bird flying at night. They sometimes will hear calls that they're completely unfamiliar with, or they'll just be driving. This thing flies over their car, and they're like, its wingspan was larger than the highway. So something is out there, right? Is it possible that it's some of these pterosaurs? Maybe they are. Maybe that is what's being encountered. Is it possible there's something else out there, that it's a giant teratorn that's being seen? Maybe. Maybe it's even more exotic than that. In my book, I've got a story of a lechuza, right? Which is essentially an owl the size of a human being with the face of a woman. Clearly a supernatural creature, because it haunts this girl for a week, tapping on her window. And stories of lechuzas are found all over southern United States, going to Mexico and Latin America. There are other names as well. But those stories also go all the way back to Greece with the harpies and the sirens, and in Babylon with Lilith, of these female owl demon things. I'd like to sit here and say everything's material. It's a giant pterosaur. That would make my life so much easier. Or to say everything's paranormal. That would also make my life easier. Unfortunately, it seems like the world's a lot more complicated than I would very much like it to be. But hopefully, maybe one of these days we'll find a feather if it's a teratorn. Or maybe we'll find one of these things. It'll just die on the highway. Maybe it gets too close to and then we'll have a body. And we can actually start putting these pieces together. But one of the questions I have, right, is because we do have stories of these massive pterosaurs that are seen. Again, the ones around the Rio Grande Valley, where they seemed like pteranodons because people were describing crests. But they were also much, much larger. Well, the problem is, again, Mr. Whitcomb has that story of the one that was seen around Cuba back in the 60s, right? He draws it as having a crest, or a form of crest, teeth, and a long tail, and that it was massive. And of course, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, that's really weird, because ramphoractoids didn't get that big, and they didn't have crests that we're aware of. But if this is just a different species, maybe it's a species we haven't discovered, or they've adapted since whatever cataclysmic, well, not whatever, but since the cataclysmic event that changed and reshaped the earth and fossilized these creatures. If they've adapted since then maybe we're talking about a species. Well, then here's the other question. What if the ramphoractoid that I'm studying, that I'm familiar with, what if that's the beginning of a life cycle? What if they become larger and they stay in our area, they move out over time, and as they grow, they need more and more updrafts. So they go further out into the desert. They're looking for areas with updrafts, like large, deep, cavernous valleys. They get so big that they can fly thousands of miles. Eagles can fly thousands of miles at a time. Perhaps we are not dealing with multiple species of pterosaurs. Maybe we're dealing with one at different stages of its development. And so we're looking at life. We're looking at patterns. We're looking at again, many animals, when they procreate, they'll stay in the shallows, like say, the water. They'll stay in the shallows until they're large enough to venture out. And then they undergo radical changes. There's plenty of creatures that look one way when they're infants and radically different when they're adults. So that may be what we're dealing with as well. Not multiple species, but one at different stages of development. But again, a very, very small population. And who's to say that when we're saying, oh, there's the ropin over in Papua New Guinea, then we have the pterosaurs around here. Who's to say they're not all the same species? Not just the same species, but that's part of the migratory pattern. How do we know? One of the reasons that we only see them every so often is because they're not flying out and essentially living in Papua New Guinea. Maybe that's just one of the areas that they hang out in. It's sort of a larger migratory pattern.
I want to get into sea monsters here because I think this also plays in. Whether it's close to where I live, we have the Ogopogo.
Yes.
There's the Cadborosaurus that runs between Northern California, right up the coast, past British Columbia to Alaska. We have Champ. We have Nessie. We have a lot of sea monsters out there. Never mind what's in the big ocean. Now, for one, I still believe there's a megalodon out there.
Yes, a lot of people do.
And I know in talking to Max Hawthorne, I don't know if you've ever spoken to him, okay, but he doesn't believe megalodon exists, but he does believe that there is some sort of super great white shark out there that gets kind of an in-between a great white and a megalodon in that 35 to 42, 45 foot range that is powering through a number of big sharks because they've seen 16, 17 foot sharks with bites on them.
Yes.
That the only way that bite could be made in a single bite was by a giant shark.
Yes.
Okay. And so I believe they're out there. Maybe there is a kraken out there swimming, alone in the depths of the Atlantic. I don't know. Where do you stand on a lot of this?
So, one confession, water cryptids are my favorite cryptids. I love sea monsters, and of my favorite sea creatures is the Cadborosaurus. It's my favorite one because it's the only cryptid officially recognized by science because we had a body, we had a skeleton that was recovered. Again, lost to time, but it was recovered, it was photographed, and now we have something to actually look at and say, what is this thing that has been seen? It is my personal favorite cryptid. As far as what's in the water, that's sort of the beautiful thing about the water is anything could be out there. The fact that we have such consistent descriptions of what would appear to be something like plesiosaurs, there's a ton of evidence in sightings for something like a mosasaur. But I think there's also one of those, when we get to sea monsters, we need to have a broader view. Even things like zoolodons, which were primitive whales, right? There may be still some of those. Some of these may be more mammalian than reptilian that we're dealing with. And so there's a huge opportunity again for giant sharks, maybe something like a megalodon, maybe something like a zoolodon out there. In fact, there was they found echolocation. They recorded echolocation in the Great Lakes. There's nothing supposed to echolocate in the Great Lakes. So we have evidence that something is there that we are not familiar with. So is something like Cadborosaurus, is it reptilian? Is it perhaps a form of zoolodon that we're unfamiliar with? I don't know, but the possibilities are endless, and there's so much evidence that something is there. People have seen sea monsters since the dawn of time. They've recorded them since the dawn of time. It's not just foolish to think that perhaps it's all mythology and people were just making it up. It's flat out ignorant to think that that's what's happening.
It is. It is. So do you believe then, see, like with Ogopogo, for instance, okay, I'm very tempted to believe, and I know I got my detractors out there. I'm very tempted to believe that it could be a sturgeon, a very large white sturgeon.
Mhm.
Okay, because Okanagan Lake is known for its very large breeding ground for white
Mhm.
sturgeon. Okay,
Yes.
which eventually leads into the Columbia River that separates Washington and Oregon.
Mhm.
I believe that. I don't know about Champ. Okay, I don't know about Nessie, the Loch Ness monster. I want to believe that
Mhm.
they are there. I really do want to believe
Mhm.
that. I want to believe that, there are still dinosaurs swimming around,
Mhm.
because we've only discovered and researched less than 10% or more,
Mhm.
around that 5% mark of
Yeah.
all of the world's oceans. What are we missing?
Oh, a heck of a whole lot. And so on that note, right? I do want to get back to the Kraken at one before we leave out of this hour, but before that, I do think we do need to pay very close attention to the idea that there are known creatures of gigantic size, right? That may represent a different species, but or may represent giantism within a species as a possibility for a lot of different creatures. And one of the reasons for that is, again, in Metroplex Monsters, again, I love seeing monsters. And again, not a lot of water in Texas. So when I get a chance to write about them, I'm like, yes. We have giant stories of giant catfish. But the thing that surprised me was every North Texan has heard the story of these giant alligator gar. Alligator gar are, if you're unfamiliar with the fish, they're monster fish, right? They can get over 6 feet long and they have teeth. Like, there's a reason we call them alligator gar. Just it's a fish and an alligator put together, and it's just terrifying. And killing them is often far more difficult than you would want it to be. But a lot of people enjoy fishing for them, right? They're very, very large. They put up a big fight, and they live all up and down the Trinity River, one of the main rivers in North Texas. It goes all the way out to Galveston Bay. However, there are so many accounts of people seeing them larger than 10 feet, that the Texas Parks and Wildlife actually considers, the officials say they don't get, 6 to 8 feet is max. But they flat out said we have too many accounts of people seeing 10 and 15-foot long alligator gar that we have to consider it is possible that alligator gar can get larger than that. So right there is that one little piece of evidence that says, hey, okay, maybe it's silly because it's a known fish, but I'm over here saying, well, hold on. The Texas Department of Wildlife is willing to say maybe there is something more out there with these creatures. And maybe every so often there is a sturgeon that's 2 or 3 times larger than we're used to seeing. And who knows what other features, may become more pronounced at that size. You get one of those things swimming up a river, and all of a sudden everyone's seeing a creature or a monster. There's a creature here in North Texas called Old One Eye. And again, all the lakes here in North Texas were man-made. We dammed up the rivers to make these lakes, right? Well, what a lot of people forget is that eels, the North American eel, used to swim all the way up to North Texas, part of their life cycle, right? Well, what if there's a population of eel that got trapped in that lake and has grown to an enormous size, and just every so often people see it? That's where you get the Old One Eye. There's a good reason to think that perhaps the Loch Ness monster is a giant eel. But here's the thing: when we do these eDNA studies, it may just show up as a normal eel. When they do the eDNA study, if it's giantism, it wouldn't show up. I actually got a chance to interview the guy who did the eDNA studies, and I said, hey, if it was a European eel of gigantic size, and perhaps it had suffered giantism, or may even be a completely new species that we're unfamiliar with, what would it show up in your tests? And they said it would just show up as an eel.
And on that note, we have Jason McLean for another 30 minutes here on Spaced Out Radio. We're going to get to some audience questions next for Jason on monsters and dinosaurs around the world. Stay tuned. Spaced Out Radio continues right after this. You know, I have to tell you, I grew up right along the Fraser River, which has some of the greatest sturgeon fishing in the
Mhm.
world.
Really?
And the biggest one I've caught was about 75 pounds.
Really?
Yeah. And that was a baby.
Yeah.
I remember we hooked onto one. We never saw it. And we hooked it behind the boat. It took off upriver like a
Mhm.
gunshot, and it started pulling our boat upriver. And it dragged us so far, our anchor got stuck on something, and then it must
Wow.
have went under a log,
Mhm.
okay, and then came up. We never saw it,
Mhm.
but I could tell you, with the strength of the Fraser River current, this fish was swimming upstream and was pulling the boat into the water. And
Wow.
we were on a 22, 24-foot boat. And
Jeez.
that boat, before we cut the line, we were within the front end of the boat,
Mhm.
or the bow of the boat, pardon me, was probably 2 to 3 inches from going in the water. Like we were at the point
Whoa.
where like, okay, let's get the life jackets on.
Yeah.
Okay. And then
That's insane.
yeah, I mean, I've watched people hook
Mhm.
14, 15 foot white sturgeon in the river
Mm.
and fight them all day. And
Mhm.
that fish will take you miles, right? And they're out there.
That's insane. Yeah,
Yeah.
every angler has that story of I hooked something and it snapped my line, right? And even if you had a nice thick line, it's like, okay, so hold on, there's not supposed to be anything large enough to snap this line because you were
Yeah.
going for something big. And yet we all have those stories, and it does make you wonder how many things are out there that are of a known species but are suffering from giantism, or perhaps even a new species. If it's not cataloged, right, it's not necessarily going to show up in an eDNA study as something new. That's not how they're going to read it. They're only looking for the DNA that they know. It would just show up as another eel or something like that. It just makes you wonder how much is out there that we're just unfamiliar with.
Well, and that's exactly it. That's exactly it. Hey, do you have any? Well, I was going to ask you this on the air, but I'll ask you now. Any update? Because I know where you sometimes go out with big techs.
Mhm.
Have you guys gone back to that area where the tigers are allegedly in
Oh
the
yeah,
forest?
yeah, oh yeah, all the time.
You see any tracks of the tigers?
No, not of the tigers. Tex actually though has some photographs when they were out there last year that are really interesting. I believe he's shown them on the show. And essentially it's something, we think it's probably one or two juvenile Sasquatches put their hands on the trucks while they were up in
Yes.
the cemetery. Yeah. And they're great photographs. So yeah, we've been back a number of times and some weird things have happened. That's probably the best from a documented evidentiary perspective. But yeah, it's Brown Springs is always weird. It never
Yeah.
fails.
Yeah. One of these days, man, I mean, I know you guys go in armed, but one of
Mhm.
these days, I don't know what I would do if all of a sudden a freaking tiger came out at me. Like you have to kill it.
Yeah.
You have to.
Yeah, well, if it's being aggressive, mostly at that point, you would just call the game warden and see if you get it out. But if it's aggressive, you gotta. But again, I think the fact that if they've gone uncaught for this long, it means they're probably avoiding people. even if they're not afraid of people, they're probably avoiding them. Most animals, when they go feral, even dogs, will try to avoid humans. So I'm hoping that's the situation, because obviously, you don't want to kill them if you don't have to, but you also don't want them taking out somebody's kid or somebody's dog or something.
Right. For people who don't know what we're talking about, they go
Mhm.
in an area where the alleged Tiger King allegedly let go like somewhere between 9 and 17 tigers that have never been accounted for.
Well, it was a tornado after he had left, these had gone to a refuge like 2 miles
Hold
down
on,
the road
hold on.
from where we
We're
researched.
going back live here. Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Second half of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Thank you for tuning us in tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Always appreciate earning your listening ears. I want to remind all of you that if you missed portions of this show or others, you can always check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Great guest tonight, Jason McLean. We're talking dinosaurs, modern day dinosaurs. Do you believe they are still roaming around? Jason, thank you for being with us. Glad to have you to the top of the hour.
Again, always happy to come on, Dave. Love Spaced Out Radio.
All right, let's get to some audience questions here because they are building up. Let's start with Stephanie, who is asking, if dinosaurs are still roaming around, where do you think they would be?
So I guess that's a really good that's a really good question. If I had a solid answer, I'd probably have a lot more evidence that they were still around. A lot of that's going to depend on which dinosaurs that we're talking about, right? Again, the pterosaurs that I've investigated, they seem to like rocky ravines, right? For the updrafts, they seem to glide more than try to fly themselves, meaning by flapping. They seem to want updrafts, so they seem to like and be found more often in these ravines and in using the sort of limestone walls to climb, but then also to use that air flow. That's why we see them again in the 10 Mile Creek where I saw them, where I saw one. Crosbyton, Texas, where I have a number of accounts out of. Again, lots of these valleys where you have these constant airflows. And again, the Rio Grande Valley, same thing. Lots of airflow, lots of updrafts. But if you're dealing with something like McLean Bembe, which appears to be a sauropod, it seems like it actually lives underwater more often than not. That it's used that instead of it necessarily walking around on land all the time, it seems like it's more semi-aquatic and tends to spend more time in the water. So I think probably if it's it really just depends what you're looking for. Again, the mosasaurs, they appear to be ocean going. However, again, I've got a story in Metroplex Monsters of something that I would say has a good chance to be something like a mosasaur appearing in the Trinity River, right? So it does appear like these things will come inland every so often, just like a shark will. More ocean going. And like I said, McLean Bembe, there's another one. It's the elephant killer. It has a name I cannot pronounce. That's all in the Congo, where again, very, very dense vegetation, very hard, little human interaction with these things. And that's how they've survived, right? A lot of these things are survived by just staying the heck away from humans. Again, if there are small theropods running around, man, I wish I could tell you where they would be, because I'd like to get my hands on one of them.
All right, let's continue on here. Oh, by the way, before we continue on, have you ever talked with Cryptid 559 Javier?
I don't believe so, no.
You should. He actually got within 100 yards of what he calls a pterodactyl in his area of California.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an incredible story. Like he just has great recall on it. Great
Okay.
recall. And it was
Excellent.
daytime, and it was daytime too.
Those are my favorite.
Yes. Yes. All right, let's get to another question here. Let's go to Little Cam over on Twitch. Are you a starseed, and do you subscribe to the Akashic Records theory?
I am the son of a mechanic, so that's as far, I'm about as average as you get. Not exactly. I would say though that again, as humans, we are supernatural beings created in the image of God. We have souls. We are supernatural beings within a physical body, and therefore we have access to things that don't show up under electron microscopes and on radar. Right? What did Yoda say? We're more than just this crude matter. So I think a lot of, not specifically, but I do think we oftentimes have access to more information than we realize. So there you go.
All right, back to Stephanie, who is asking, what is your favorite dinosaur sighting story you've heard from someone?
So again, my favorite one is the Dragon of Rhodes. But again, that's of record. If it's something that I've heard from someone specifically, I would have to say it's so again, it's not one that I put in the book because it came in late. But it's a gentleman I know who again I had to pry it out of him because it's a broad daylight sighting. This thing flew right over him, right? And it's just such a great account of he got way more detail of what this thing looked like than most other people get. And it was, again, he just looked up, he saw it fly over him, and it freaked him out real hard. But he eventually, and he's personally known to me, which is why he came to me. He's like, okay, I still don't think it's a pterosaur, but I saw something really weird. And so I finally got it out of him. And it's my favorite story because he just looks up and there's this, I think it's a pterosaur flying over him. And he describes it perfectly. And it's this these leathery wings. Again, he thought it was maybe larger than 10 feet, but it was using the air to glide up, and then it pulled its wings back and shot down, and then popped the wings back up. And so what it was doing was gaining speed, popped the wings out, went off, and then just flew out of his. And he's like, he just sort of looked around like, what the heck do I do with this? Right? Like we all do. Like you see these things and you're like, okay, I don't know. But this thing was less than 100 feet from him, straight up. Again, early, sort of around 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. So good light. He saw he could see the details, and I was able to draw a picture of it from his description. And he's like, yeah, that's what I saw. I think he saw a pterosaur. So that's probably my favorite one, that I've heard directly. But my favorite story is the Dragon of Rhodes. How can you not love knights killing dragons?
True. Well, let's go to Aloha Dave down in Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
Jason, do you have an opinion on Dale Russell regarding dinosauroids?
Not specifically. I try to keep my opinions to things that I have solid data on, right? Things that we have consistent data we can look at. It's like, okay, we can start building something like the night crawlers. I would like to have an opinion on what they are or where they're coming from, but we don't really have a lot of data to go with, so it's just a mystery. So kind of the same thing for me on the dinosaurs. It's like maybe there's something to it, but I don't know that there's enough data that I like to come to actually want to formulate an opinion on it.
Perfect. Who else is next? Dizzy is asking, Jason, I'd like to ask you about any recent sightings of giant insects of the dinosaur era.
So my personal least favorite thing in the universe are spiders. I have got so many stories of giant spiders from Africa, not just the ones that you hear, but I mean, again, my wife's family are missionaries. The church I grew up in was very heavy into missionary work, so we got a lot of stories. The idea that there are tarantulas running around out there the size of small dogs or even larger is just not one that I want to entertain at all.
Right.
So yeah, I'm like, nah. It's like I keep hearing these stories, and it's like, no, I refuse to believe them only because I don't want to live in a world with a spider that big. If that happens, I will be packing a flamethrower everywhere I go because it's the only way to be sure.
Very true. Very true. All right, let us go over to Kim in San Fran. You believe the Loch Ness Monster is a dinosaur?
Man, okay, interesting point. So plesiosaurs are often thought to be are regarded as dinosaurs, but they're not. They're just marine reptiles. Same thing with mosasaurs. However, I would really like for it to be a plesiosaur. I really, really would. But I think there may be a little more going on with Loch Ness than we would like it to be. What we may be dealing with may even be more supernatural than necessarily a wayward plesiosaur. Again, giant eels are always a possibility as well. Something that we tend to forget is, we have these early accounts of things in Loch Ness from the Middle Ages and St. Columbo, but really in earnest, the modern sightings don't occur until the loch, a channel was built into the loch, right? That boats could get through, because the river itself gets very, very shallow in certain places. So it isn't really until the 20th century, after this channel is built to allow boats to come in and out, that we start seeing these encounters with the Loch Ness Monster. So it's entirely possible that whatever the Loch Ness Monster is actually migrates in and out of the loch every so often. And that's why the reason we don't find it all that often is because it's actually in the ocean. And it's only maybe coming in on rare occasions or for very short periods of time, and then migrating back out, for whatever the Loch Ness Monster wants to do. And I would love for all these things to be dinosaurs. I would love it. But like I said, there's enough weird with the Loch Ness Monster that there may be something more paranormal going on there than material.
Castle Dude is asking, if dinosaurs got wiped out by a cataclysmic event, why do you think crocodiles and alligators survived it?
Well, that's actually one of those great questions, right? Because that the mainstream science has to sort of deal with. Because my view is, again, I think the flood of Noah was a real event, and I think that's what we're dealing with. That's where we get the fossils from. Fossilization happens rapidly and involves water or heavy mineralized water and pressure. That's the one thing that we know it does. And we do know it happens quickly because we have soft tissue that's been fossilized. We also have soft tissue that's been preserved within fossils, and that's a whole other conversation. So whatever survived, I would argue, again, came off of, would have come off of the flood and has adapted to the new environment. Crocodiles, alligators, they didn't even necessarily need to be on the ark. They're aquatic anyway, right? And it's entirely possible that there were other land masses that weren't affected because humans weren't there. But as far as the dinosaurs, that's the question. How is it you have dinosaurs living, hundreds of millions of years ago with alligators and crocodiles and, large snakes? Those things survive, but the dinosaurs die out. Why do we find true birds fossilized in layers deeper than dinosaurs? Right? If dinosaurs evolved into birds and that's how they survived, and that's the mainstream theory, great. Why do we find true birds older than we're supposed to find them? And one of my favorite things people ask is like, so is there like some deep, dark, secret dungeon that has all the world's knowledge? And it's like, no, it's all hidden behind a paywall. Like the greatest mysteries in the world are actually out there in the public. It's just behind a paywall where academics are like, hey, yeah, we found this really weird stuff, and they talk about it, but it never makes it into the mainstream. It never makes it to us 9 times out of 10 because it is embarrassing to a lot of people with a lot of PhDs that sort of depend on the world being the way that their dissertation said it was.
All right, let's continue on here, my friend. Got lots of questions. Here, let's go to Zaddy. Are you familiar with the Bible saying the earth is about 6,000 years old and that dinosaurs were created by fallen angel technology?
So the age of the earth is calculated by using the genealogies that are found within Genesis. And of course, dating Abraham. There is some differences between the Masoretic text and the Septuagint. I think there's reason the Septuagint may be collecting the correct one, but it's between 6,000 and 7,000 years on both of them. That's where that comes from. There's nothing in Scripture about the dinosaurs being created by angels at all. There's just none of that. In fact, if you were to take the idea that Leviathan, specifically in Job, not in Isaiah or in Psalms, because those are clearly that's a long story. Those are theological creations for where Leviathan is sort of playing that role. But in Job, Leviathan and Behemoth are clearly physical creatures. They are animals. Behemoth is specifically said to be created on the sixth day with mankind. So they would be so dinosaurs would be naturally occurring animals, just like turtles and fish and kangaroos and everything else.
Continuing on, let's go to T-Bone. Jason, the Bible and dinosaurs in the Bible, Behemoth and Leviathan. What do you think?
Yeah, I think Behemoth and Leviathan, specifically in Job, are physical creatures. I think Behemoth is a sauropod. I think Leviathan is probably something like a mosasaur. There's other types of marine reptiles that it could have been, but I think the mosasaur sort of fits the description better. The reason for that, like I said, as I mentioned earlier, Psalms and Isaiah both have Leviathan, but that's filling a theological role more than anything else. As I mentioned before, Behemoth is specifically mentioned to have been created on the sixth day with other land animals, right? Also, it goes into a lot of description about the strength of its bones. It's describing a physical creature. Same thing with Leviathan, because in that section of Scripture, God is talking to Job, and he's talking about these animals that he has created. He's sort of going up a chain. It would be really weird to be going up this chain of clearly created animals like goats and horses and all these other things, and then just here's these two mythical creatures that we've made up, right? It's just, I think that Job is describing two physical creatures, one of them being a sauropod, the Behemoth, the other one being something like a mosasaur, which is Leviathan.
Sounds good. Let's go over to Wu Train. Did you and Donnie Cho, researcher, ever come to a conclusion on Bigfoot's private area?
There's an entire episode. Okay, yeah. Donnie Cho did one episode himself on the genitalia of Sasquatch. I happen to have a response on it. There's a conversation amongst Bigfootery on, I forget the name of certain animals have bones in locations that are sensitive. We'll say that it's a very common mammalian trait that humans don't have. And so the question is, would Bigfoot fall into that category? And that's a conversation that is had amongst certain Bigfooters. My thing is, until we have a body, there's no way to know anything about it. So I'm happy to call it a mystery, and I will let him dig into that as much as he would like. I have other concerns.
Sounds perfect. Let's go to Goddess Michelle. Welcome back, Goddess Michelle. We've missed you a lot around here. What do you think of all the Thunderbird sightings then? I know we touched on this earlier, but she's just...
Oh, yeah. No. So again, to not go over too much of that, there are tons of sightings of giant birds, right? I use that in quotation marks because a lot of the accounts that I have, again, for every one pterosaur I have, I've got 3 accounts of a giant bird at night, wingspans that cover, a 2-lane highway. It's a real phenomena, right? So there's just straight up. Are they pterosaurs? I would really hope that they are. And honestly, it sort of explains why we don't find giant, 6, 7, 8 foot long feathers every once in a while, right? That's one of my big questions is we have these stories of what appear to be teratorns, but where are the giant feathers, right? At least one would prove that they were real. A pterosaur sort of kind of cleans that up a lot because now we don't have them losing feathers. Now, that having been said, I've actually talked about this on when I was doing shows myself. When I grew up, there was a family of blue jays that came and nested in this tree in our front yard every year. I only found a handful of feathers over like a 10-year span, right? And so, again, if you have a small enough population, those feathers could go anywhere. So is it possible that there are teratorns out there? Or again, really, really massive birds? I think there's a solid possibility. Is it possible that they're all seeing giant pterosaurs that may be at a later stage of the lifespan than the one I encountered? I think that's a really strong possibility as well. Then, of course, the third possibility is we're dealing with something else far more exotic than either of those. And unfortunately, I got some stories that would indicate that that's a real possibility also. So again, at the end of the day, I would really like for them to be pterosaurs because that'd be a lot of fun.
Let's move on. Speaking of Thunderbirds, Castle Dude is wondering, could dragons be confused with Thunderbirds?
So I think one of the things that we have to sort of realize is the word dinosaur is not even 200 years old, right? That's a very modern word. And prior to that, dragon was the word that was used for these creatures. So to speak about a living dinosaur, you're speaking about a dragon. Now, that being said, I have plenty of stories of paranormal, clearly paranormal creatures that appear to be more what we would consider sort of a fantasy dragon, right? That has that sort of Game of Thrones look to it. So I think if people are seeing something, if someone sees something that has a more Game of Thrones look rather than say a pterosaur look, I think you may be dealing with something that's paranormal, supernatural, and that's the form it's either choosing to take, or perhaps that's the form that it wants you to see. Again, I think there's a lot of things that are a lot more exotic out there than we would like, than would make us comfortable.
All right. We got 2 minutes. Let's try and get 2 questions in.
Okay.
Michelle is asking, do you think mermaids are a part of aquatic dinosaurs, and are they still out there?
Okay. First part, no. Second part, I don't know. However, there's evidence that there are mermaids out there. Whatever mermaid is, I don't think they would be related to dinosaurs at all. And they freak me out.
What about humans?
Again, they could be related to humans. Again, they could be supernatural. I don't know what they are. Again, there's not enough data to know what they are, but whatever they are, they freak me out.
S for Matt with the final question of the night. With dinosaurs being so big, did Earth have different gravity back then?
So actually, the vast majority of dinosaurs were relatively small. We talk about the big ones, but the vast majority of them were smaller than dogs, like a large dog, honestly. And actually, it's not the gravity that was different. It's the oxygen content. There isn't enough oxygen in our atmosphere right now to support something like a titanosaur, right? So it's really not the gravity that was different back then. It was I would argue, it was the pressure, the air pressure that everything was living under, but also the oxygen content was significantly higher than it is today.
Jason, where can everybody find your books?
Amazon.com. That has most of my work on there. Metroplex Monsters can be found pretty much anywhere. Fine books and trashy rags are sold.
Love it, man. What a great show. And thank you again for coming back on Spaced Out Radio. It had been way too long, my man.
It has. We'll do it again, man.
Absolutely. And you know what? If you want more monsters, just look up Jason. He's right out there. Very, very good thinker when it comes to going outside the box and trying to bring it into not only a religious text, but reality as well. We need more of that around here. Just makes the woo that much more fun. Coming up next, Steve Stockton from Among the Missing tells us another creepy missing person story. Then right after that, little Timmy Senor joins us for the UFO report. He's filling in for Courtney Marcassani, who is on the UFO assignment right now. We'll be right back on Spaced Out Radio. Stay tuned. Great job, Jay.
Hey, appreciate you, Dave, man. Y'all,
Thank
again, thanks to the chat. Love all y'all. We'll catch y'all later. Good night.
Take care, my man. Good night. All right. I'm just going to quickly take a quick break. I'll be right back, people. All right. Thank you for being with us tonight. Right around the corner, little Timmy Senor. I know you're excited. I'm excited. Timmy. Thank you tonight to Lala, Susan, Flat 6 T-Bone times 2, Louie, Dave, Pam, and Joanne for the great super chats tonight. Very much appreciate the love and support. It's a good way to support what we do, on this show on a nightly basis, so thank you very, very much. Yes, you'll notice I trimmed the mustache yesterday. Yeah, I had to. My CPAP machine just wasn't fitting properly around the old nostrils. Yeah. So we fixed that. We're all good now. We is all good. Reminder, you can shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. And don't forget, you can get your tickets right now. Reserve your tickets, I should say, for the 3rd annual SOR fan party in Reno, Nevada at the Silver Legacy Casino and Resort. So far confirmed special guests are Keith Andrews, Tom Whitmore, Jim Goodall, Kevin Day, Lorian Fenton, Merle, Tim Senor, Geraldine Orozco, Melinda Leslie, and Lala Bright and Science Bob. We're going to be adding more to that list very, very soon. We want you to come. Live radio show, live VIP party, swag bags, paranormal tour of Virginia City, Skywatch with Melinda Leslie, and a Sunday fun day full of partying. Come join us, will you? Thank you, T-Bone, for the next your hat trick of super chats. Very much appreciate that, my man. And here we go, everyone. The next half hour.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Here we go for the 3rd and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hi to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Eclat. Eclat is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. It is that time of the night where we say hello to Steve Stockton from Among the Missing and another creepy story.
Hello, friends. Welcome to Among the Missing YouTube channel on Spaced Out Radio. I'm Steve Stockton, and I'm about to take you on an unbelievable journey of people just like you. Their stories and encounters will haunt us on Among the Missing. Now, Wind Cave National Park in South Dakota is renowned for its mesmerizing cave systems and steeped in Native American history and legends. Among the many stories that echo through the park, one of the most captivating is the legend of the spirit of Chief Black Elk. Chief Black Elk, an Oglala Lakota Sioux, was a revered spiritual leader and medicine man born in 1863. He played a significant role in the history of the Lakota people and was present at the Battle of the Little Bighorn in 1876. However, his connection to Wind Cave gives rise to the mystical tale. Legend has it that Chief Black Elk, seeking a vision quest, ventured deep into the Black Hills, the sacred lands of the Lakota. As he meditated near what is now Wind Cave, the spirits of the cave revealed themselves to him. The entrance to the cave acted as a portal between the physical and spiritual realms. As the legend goes, the spirit of Chief Black Elk became intertwined with the essence of Wind Cave. It's said that his spirit, infused with the wisdom and energy of the cave, continues to watch over the sacred grounds. The wind that whispers through the cave's passages is believed to carry the voice of Chief Black Elk, offering guidance and protection to those who will listen with open hearts. Visitors to Wind Cave National Park often report feeling a profound sense of spirituality within its depths. The cave's unique geological formations, such as boxwork and frostwork, add an otherworldly aspect to the experience, enhancing the belief that this place is a bridge to the spiritual realm. The legend of the spirit of Chief Black Elk also highlights the deep connection between the Lakota people and the natural world. For Native American cultures, the land is not just a physical space, but a living entity with its own spirit. With its hidden chambers and mysterious air currents, Wind Cave becomes a sacred space where the spiritual and earthly converge. To honor Chief Black Elk and the spiritual significance of Wind Cave, the National Park Service has worked closely with the Native American communities to preserve and interpret the cultural heritage of the area. The park offers educational programs and guided tours that delve into the history and legends associated with Wind Cave, allowing visitors to appreciate the profound cultural and spiritual importance of this natural wonder. So, whether exploring the cave's depths or hiking on the surface, visitors to Wind Cave National Park can sense the presence of the spirit of Chief Black Elk. The legend continues to be passed down through generations, a testament to the enduring power of stories that connect people to the land and its rich tapestry of history and spirituality.
Thank you to Steve Stockton for a great story here on Among the Missing. If you want more just like that, head on over to youtube.com/Among the Missing to find out more about these stories. You can hit subscribe, ring that bell, because we definitely want to see you there. From the missing to the mysterious, filling in for a working on UFO story, Courtney Marcassani. Here's little Timmy Senor and the UFO report.
Nobody's gonna know. They're gonna know.
Little Timmy Senor, it's great to have you back on Spaced Out Radio. Thank you for joining us. Now, during the break, or during our guest, you were in the chat room talking about how you got chased by and almost eaten by a tuna while scuba diving. You got to tell me this story, man.
Yeah, it's by the way, thanks for having me on. It's great to see you, buddy. It's one of my top 3 diving stories from when I was a young man. I was working on a dive boat living in Lahaina in Maui in Hawaii, and I was out diving almost every day. And on this one particular day, I was down about 50 feet or so, and a whole school of tuna were below, and a few of them noticed me and took a lot of interest in my flippers and actually chased me back to the boat, biting at my flippers as I swam as quickly as I could. And yeah, they were really aggressive, and a bunch of them chased me all the way to the boat.
Were they the super big blue fins?
Yeah. I mean, not mega. They weren't the massive tuna, but they were I would estimate 4 feet long. So, big. Still big.
My.
Yeah.
My. Yeah, they could take, and they're fast too.
Yeah, and so surprisingly aggressive. I had no idea. And they were definitely nipping at my flippers as I was swimming. It was a little scary, and so I made my way quickly to the boat. Needless to say, definitely in my top 3 stories.
Yeah. See, that's why I don't do the ocean, Tim. There's a good reason there.
Yeah,
Not to do the ocean.
but there's so much amazing stuff there too. I got to see a humpback whale giving birth. I saw 2 massive sea turtles about the size of VW bugs each come out of a cave. And all along the side of these massive turtles in the shell, in the algae that was growing on their shells, people had written their names. Now, you're not supposed to touch them. It's actually illegal. but people had written their names in the algae on these turtles. It was just, they were probably hundreds of years old. It's incredible.
Wow. Well, let's get right to it because there's some heavy news in the UFO world regarding David Grush. Again, did you see this?
Hit me.
All right. Well, the war between David Grush and Sean Kirkpatrick seems to be continuing, and it's a nasty little piece here that it all goes back to emails because Kirkpatrick has come out again stating that the Arrow program never received one single email or anything from Grush regarding him trying to give evidence to Arrow on what he knows and who he knows that were inside the UFO world chasing these down. And it's big on Twitter right now, or X, whatever you want to call it. And apparently there is news that Grush could literally send these same emails to the public or to Congress to prove himself, but he hasn't done it as of yet. What do you think of this he said she said match between these two? I mean, talk about a public feud.
Yeah, and it is exactly what you're saying, the he said, she said, and the ridiculousness of the back and forth. When the fact is, if there's a discussion to be had, let's just have that discussion and not worry about the emails of setting that up or any of that. Let's just get it done. And I know recently there have been some talks about exactly what you're saying about David Grush. And so Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, or AOC, came out specifically about David Grush, saying in a quote, "The allegations of reprisal and culture is actually a primary concern." And so inferring there that the effects of culture are at question here, and the allegations that there's reprisals for coming forward like this from the actual agencies that they are reporting to. So it's a little bit of a catch-22 for potential whistleblowers that would want to come forward. They're seeing how Grush is being handled by the actual agency that's supposed to be taking those reports and backing away from the microphone. So we're seeing a lot of negative light being put on potential whistleblowers and the already public whistleblowers. And AOC has a lot to say about it. So now it's great that we're seeing some representatives coming forward and talking about this. But a lot of the discussions are saying that there's more discussions needed to be had. And Dave, I think this is probably what the news is really talking about, is that behind the scenes, there's still a lot of questions and not a lot of answers. They're still in a information gathering stage, it seems like. And whenever a potential whistleblower tries to come forward with information, they're silenced by the very agency that is supposed to be collecting them by negative allegations and negative, let's just say, remarks publicly coming from Kirkpatrick himself.
Yeah, I don't know where this is going, but I mean, realistically, this is becoming Days of Our Lives of the UFO world. It's a soap opera, my man, a complete soap opera with everything that's happening in the UFO world. I mean, look, we need more people like David Grush to come out. We can say that. We can agree to that. The problem that we have is this, I believe, is truly stalling other whistleblowers from coming public because they don't want Sean Kirkpatrick and his people who are anti-ufology to come at them and throw the book at them, let alone the potential for repercussion with pensions and job tenure, job loss, security clearance. I mean, there's a lot on the line here that is really going on between Kirkpatrick and Grush, which leads to other whistleblowers.
Exactly. And this is really what our Congress people are starting to dig away and chip away at. And some of the core questions that they're starting to realize that they need to ask are surrounding how the military industrial complex has been covering this up for decades. And the fact is, it's not just this topic, it's potential, actual technology that has been buried away in who knows where. And the Congress may or may not have had a direct hand in it with their budget knowledge, but definitely things have been taking place for decades that have just been part of programs that have been approved. And so the mechanism has just been working. But now that we're holding a magnifying glass up to those and taking a look at how we're spending, we're starting to see that some of these programs that we've just automatically been paying for have been actually black programs that we know nothing about. And the fact is, a lot of that spending has gone unanswered. And so it's time for Congress to get answers.
Question is, whose answers do we believe now? I mean, this is where it's getting tough, because I mean, there you have all the people on Twitter who are basically calling Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick a liar. David Grush is calling him a liar, and many others are saying this. I mean, here's the thing that we have to remember. David Grush has gone on record and sworn an oath to Congress for the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help him God, about what he's seen, the people that he worked with, who the entities are that are trusted with these secrets. Yes, majority of that has happened behind closed doors due to secrets, top secret clearance. Okay. But we also know that Kirkpatrick really has been a denier of everything that has come out so far. Yet he goes and writes an article with Avi Loeb from Harvard regarding UFOs being here. I mean, it's a guy who's talking out of both sides of his mouth and has been caught many times doing that. I mean, it's an ugly situation. I hate to be repetitious in saying that, but Tim, I don't know where this is going, and it just seems like it's going to get uglier in this war of the words over social media between Grush and Kirkpatrick.
Yeah. And just as we saw Kirkpatrick show up at the NASA hearing, if he's attached to anything that Avi Loeb is doing, you can assume that that is a motivated program towards one direction or another. And we know that so far, even though this has been a bipartisan topic politically, there is division there. And any wider they can create in that gap, the better. So any kind of question that can be put up for any whistleblower that comes forward, now calling them true believers, whether the source is a true believer for the whistleblowers or not, now comes into play. And so you can see the division created. And this is definitely going to end up being something that becomes a political issue, in my personal opinion. And you can kind of see that coming. And again, consider anything that is attached to this DOD topic. Again, it's UAP, right? We're not even talking about UFOs and aliens if we're talking UAP. So for people that are interested in UFOs, just know that that is not of interest here, and it's not being discussed. What they're talking about is subversive programs, black budget programs, the UAP topic being balloons, and the fact of we've got military programs and operations flying above our skies that maybe are not in the FAA's control. I mean, I think it's something more along those lines that they're talking about politically, because at no point have we talked about UFO or plasma balls or of anything even of interest to people that are following the true alien UFO topic. Dave, I think you'll agree. This is a topic that is in its own way very political. And that's why we called it ufolotics at one point.
We sure did. And you know, it's unfortunately not going to get any prettier. It really isn't, because what people, I don't know if the people you're hearing from are saying this, but the people I'm hearing from right now who are talking are literally saying that behind the scenes, Tim, there is a giant war going on, a war of words and of taking sides about who's controlling this narrative and why. And from what I'm hearing from my sources, this is about to get real ugly in 2024. That we're talking potential lawsuits, we're talking, you know, public shaming, we're talking, you know, deniers of stories and of careers and of credentials and everything like that. I mean, it does the topic no good, but I guess we can't expect anything different when things go political.
No, you're exactly right. And I think we saw how the uh, ufology world kind of ate itself with the introduction of Lou Elizondo and TTSA back then, when they were introduced to us publicly and we were revealed three miraculous videos that were given to us by the military, and we were all scratching our heads. Now, if we think back to that day, we knew nothing. And all we had were some new amazing videos for us to diagnose. So as things panned out, we realized maybe it wasn't exactly what we thought. And here we are now, with hindsight being 2020, pure clarity as it is. We now know that this was definitely part of a motivated injection of this topic into the public purview for one reason or another. It was a motivated injection of this topic, and it hit the newspapers and it hit the public running. And so far, we've been eating it up, and it has turned into one heck of a tsunami of information. And, you know, both sides of the story coming to blows at this point. And so you're absolutely right. 2024 is going to be interesting for ufolotics. But for people that are interested in aliens and real UFOs, keep looking to the skies and the, I would say, public sources for the real news on that topic.
Yeah, we have to. We have to. And what do you think's going to happen next? Do you see this whoever the new head of Arrow is going to be take the same staunch outlook as Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, where it's almost passive aggressive? Do you see that happening?
Not at all. In fact, I see this next person taking on a role that is kind of more accepting of the topic. However, it's not going to make it any easier for this to pass and to be accepted politically. Now, we do know that potentially the person coming into play here is what we'd consider somebody that already has knowledge and may believe in the reality of UFOs. So that's kind of why I'm saying it may kind of ease things the way they go. But we do need some balance when it comes to this topic. We don't need somebody that necessarily completely believes, because I think that that doesn't really help us. We need somebody that is right down the middle and able to just deliver facts at this point if we really want to move the needle forward. And so we need it to be more accepting and a comfortable place for whistleblowers. And I do see that happening. I see more whistleblowers coming forward. What we need is to have more verified videos brought forward publicly. And by that, I mean verified before they're brought forward publicly, Dave, because I think we need a little bit more of that.
Well, we could use a little bit more honesty and integrity when it comes to this subject. But when you're dealing with potential life-changing news, like another life form being on this planet, or trying to protect national security with the toys that they have that are anywhere from 50 to 100 years advanced of what we are seeing today, there's a reason there's a lot of arguing, bickering, name calling, and cat calling going on within the UFO world. And yes, the UFO Days of Our Lives continues as we continue with the UFO report when we return on Spaced Out Radio. Little Timmy Senor is holding the fort tonight for Courtney Marcassani. We will be right back when we return. Stay tuned. Spaced Out Radio's final half hour comes up right after this. Little Timmy Senor.
What up, D?
Not much, man.
You shaved off your beard and it's like you lost 30 pounds.
No, I gained like 80 though after shaved 30 pounds of hair and gained 80 pounds of second double chin.
Are you sleeping better though now with the
Yeah.
mask? That's good.
Yeah. I'm no longer snoring at night. I'm no longer talking in my sleep. I'm not tossing and turning. What else can I tell you?
How are the visitors with it?
I don't know. They haven't been around since. I'm sleeping a lot heavier right now.
Mhm.
And I'm not talking about weight or the size of my watermelon head. Jessica Davenport, how are you? Mike Rivers, how you doing? Kira, back at the gym tomorrow. I know you asked that earlier.
It's my boy.
Yep. What else can I tell you? I'm not drooling. As gross as that sounds, I had started drooling because I guess that's a symptom of gasping for air as you drool.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I've stopped that, which is nice. Hi, Asimov. How you doing? Mama Catherine's still awake. We love you, dear. We love you so much. Yes, Sandra Kincaid, the wonders of the CPAP. You know the problem I'm having, though, right now is I'm bouncing. I have two separate pieces that go over my nose. One that actually has like nostril plugs.
Yes.
And one that kind of sits over. But the problem is I'm not used to it. And it's really hurting my nose, like the nostril plugs one. Really hurting my nose. So,
yeah. I remember my dad complained of that too. And what I think he did was, I think he was using like Noxema or not Noxema.
Like Vaseline.
Vaseline. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. I got to try something. I'm flipping tonight. I'm going back to the nostril ones tonight.
Yeah. Little petroleum jelly.
Yeah. Yep.
That's great, dude. That's great.
Oh, yeah, it's nice to breathe again. I don't know. I'll panic on the full mask, Kira. I will totally panic on the full mask.
I can see that. Hey, look at this really cool swag I found.
Oh, nice. It's nice that you're not using it on your key.
Well, it's in here with all my other stuff. I don't, dude, I don't have keys. Come on.
Hi, CS. How you doing?
Who has keys anymore?
What are you talking about?
I walk up, everything's with my phone. I turn my car on with my phone, everything. Phone.
Yeah, you're a phone addict, though. So, Tim.
Yeah.
Are you excited about Reno?
Dude, I was just going to say, so I was booking my room and they have those dates all blocked off, but I'm going on the 9th and leaving on the 13th. So I went in and had to just book my room on my own because you had those. Yeah, it's like
I'm going 9 to 13 as well.
Nice.
I just have to book my stuff here. Crave Dog, how are you? Yes, Tim Senor, one of our lineup of great people who will be at the Spaced Out Radio Party, along with R. Keith Andrews, Science Bob and Lala, Melinda Leslie, Geraldine Orozco, Merle, Lorian Fenton, Kevin Day. Yes, Kevin Day.
Kev's fun.
Jim Goodall, Tom Whitmore, and we're waiting on more. We are waiting on more.
This is a good group. This is a good, fun group of people, too. It's going to be a blast. Yeah.
And the best part about it is, to our listeners, they're all coming for you. All these people are coming to hang out with the Spaced Out Radio listeners. That's why we do this. It's not a conference. It's a hangout session. have a beer. If you want to take Tim for dinner, not take for dinner, but you want to invite him out for dinner, or you want to have breakfast and talk some UFOs, or why he still believes UAP are real, you know, you can do that. You know, you could tell him what freaked the hell out of him in the forests of British Columbia, why he got scared for 12 months or the last 7 months, right? He's still cleaning his underwear over that. That's just the way it is, you know? So join us, info@spacedoutradio.com. No, T-Bone, I haven't found my passport. We're going to try a pendulum. We're going to draw a picture of the house with every room, and we're going to try a pendulum to locate my passport.
Can I just say reapply as a backup?
Yeah, soon.
Unbelievable.
Here we go. Here we go with the final half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate you coming on in. Reminder to all of you that if you miss portions of this show or others, our archives are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Tim Senor filling in for Courtney Marcassani on the UFO Report. Courtney's on assignment on the East Coast looking for them aliens and UFOs, so Tim will be with us all week long. Tim, welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
All right, where are we going now, buddy?
So next, there is a brand new report out, and it is on UAP and plasmas in the thermosphere. And so this new report is coming out from, let's see, I'll have to tell you where it's coming from in a moment. Oh, the Journal of Modern Physics, and this is volume 10, 2024. And the paper's title is Extraterrestrial Life in the Thermosphere, Plasmas, UAP, Pre-Life, and Fourth State of Matter. And so, Dave, I'm going to give you the abstract on this, and then we're going to talk briefly about this. So plasmas up to 1 kilometer in size and behaving similarly to multicolor organisms have been filmed on 10 separate NASA space missions over 200 miles above the Earth within the thermosphere. Now, these self-illuminated plasmas are attracted to and may, quote, feed on electromagnetic radiation. They have different morphologies: 1, a cone; 2, a cloud; 3, a donut; 4, a spherical cylindrical shape, and have been filmed flying towards and descending from thermosphere to thunderstorms, into thunderstorms, congregating by hundreds and interacting with satellites, generating electromagnetic activity, approaching the space shuttles, and computerized analysis. These plasmas travel at different velocities from different directions and change their angle of trajectory, making 45-degree, 90-degree, and 180-degree shifts and follow each other. Now, they've been filmed accelerating, slowing down, stopping, congregating, and engaging in, quote, hunter predatory behavior, and intersecting plasmas, leaving a, quote, plasma dust trail in their wake. Similar lifelike behaviors have been demonstrated by plasma created experimentally. Now, these plasmas may have been photographed in the 1940s by World War II pilots identified as, quote, Foo Fighters, repeatedly observed and filmed by astronauts and military pilots, and classified as unidentified aerial anomalous phenomenon. Now, plasmas are not biological, but may represent a form of, quote, pre-life that, via the incorporation of elements common in space, could result in the synthesis of RNA. Plasmas constitute a fourth state of matter and are attracted to electromagnetic activity, and when observed in the lower atmosphere, likely account for many of the UFO UAP sightings over the centuries. Now, Dave, we're going to dig a little deeper into this in particular, but please hit me with your first thoughts, because this paper would seem to demonstrate the thoughts that you and I share on the potentials of some of the history of plasma activity. I mean, this kind of seems to put into words exactly what we've been talking about recently. Your
It really
first
does.
thoughts.
It really does. And, the one thing that I've always stated, Tim, where we are going wrong on the scientific side is that we're trying to look for the metals, we're trying to look for the technology, we're trying to figure out the gravitational force. And yet we refuse to, even though a lot of different people have claimed about these ships being biological. We tend to push that to the side because it sounds so hokey and unbelievable. And I think this is where we kind of, this really makes a shift into the, when you get into plasma and other types of of chemicals, and this is where my science really breaks down because I'm not a scientist, people. But I really think this is where it gets into more the biologics of what is going on, Tim.
Yeah, it's interesting. Now, this paper was put together by a group of scientists, and it's obviously theoretical. And this paper does not include really any mathematical theorems or anything to back up any of the claims that they're putting into this paper. Now, a famed physicist, Matthew Zadakus, came forward and kind of gave his opinion on this, because this was a pretty big paper to come forward from this. It's called the Journal of Modern Physics. Now, it's not on a list of the top most cited physics journals, and this was one of the points that Matthew Zadakus brings forward. Now, he's a professor of physics over at the University of Albany in New York State, and his take on the article was that maybe we shouldn't put too much foundation in some of the theories inside it, just because suggesting a lot of the information in it, um, they weren't able to put any formulas into the paper. And even though some of the people that were involved, he's calling pseudoscientists. Now, you can take that for what you want. Some of the information in this paper I found very interesting, and it's definitely the sort of out of the box thinking that you need when it comes to this topic. So even though there weren't any numbers and facts and formulas behind this paper, I think the the out of box thinking behind it is fantastic, and it kind of aligns with some of the behaviors we've filmed in our group. And Dave, that you've seen when you've been out with your group, I know for a fact because we were there filming with you. So some of the things that are demonstrated definitely seem almost as if there's some kind of intelligence behind these balls of light. And so who knows what's possible?
Yeah, exactly. And we have to keep an open mind, Tim, because right now we are working with theories. Okay, science doesn't want to deal. Actually, the majority of scientists in this field do not want to deal with the possibilities that these theories may be true. They want to deal with the hard facts first, and that's not a bad thing. Even though I don't agree with that, it's not a bad way of doing things because that's how you start getting real examples. That's why the technology is so important to these scientists at hand. However, I think that a lot of these people, and I talked to Science Bob about this a number of times, I think a lot of people in the scientific community, n- if they opened up their mind a little bit more, like Gary Nolan has at Stanford University, and we use his name a lot around here, as you know, we may be a little bit further ahead on what we are looking for. Because if there is plasma, if there is some sort of biologics to these craft, it would have to think that they have some sort of life of their own. as strange as that may sound.
Now,
What if
Dave,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you have to let me play devil's advocate just for a moment here.
Sure.
Let's just say for a moment here, do you think that if a paper like this is presented, and it's purely theoretical, and because of that, a lot of scientists in the community call the scientists that are putting this paper together pseudoscientists, and then we get into some name calling and we get into finger pointing, and it gets a little bit messy. In your opinion, do you think that playing up a paper like this could potentially weaken or damage the credibility of UAP studies in general? Do you think a paper needs to come out with facts and data, or do you think it can be presented theoretically?
I think that you can present it theoretically, but it does need more data, because right now, every time something comes out, Tim, we are looking for what's wrong with it. We're not excited by it. Yes, there's the UFO cuckoos out there who believe everything that comes out. If Jeremy Corbell says it, they believe it with an unabashed smile and laughter and a fist pump, like, yes, we got another one. Then there are the people who, if somebody like Jeremy Corbell brings out another video or the same video, they are ready to hang him from the rafters as a liar, as a thief of the subject, as somebody who's doing this for clickbait and likes and popularity and disclosure for dollars. So there really is no winning right now. But if there was something that came out that was beyond the normal spectrum of what we have seen so far, then I think other scientists would look forward to it. I mean, look at the anger or the brawl, last week that was stirred up between Gary Nolan and Neil deGrasse Tyson. I ended up doing the Dave 101 on this last week. I mean, that is all about a scientist who doesn't want to even look at the evidence there. And I think that's part of the problem, is we have too many people out there who are wanting to be having an opinion in public, but they don't want to look at the research to say this might be real. This might be something that we are missing here, because scientists have become very arrogant. But as Terry said last week, it's been a long time since we've had some sort of industrial revolution. I mean, yes, you could call the technical revolution of the 90s, early 2000s, which led to stronger internet, cell phones, but it's not really, even though it's changed the world, it's not really a true revolution, I would say, that's shifted the entire movement of society. It's just
Well,
added communication to it.
Well, what do you think of the military video releases that started with TTSA and we're seeing now, even with the jellyfish video, as recent as that, with all those series of videos that we've gotten from those sources? Do you think that that has helped or hurt the true UFO topic?
I think I think at the beginning it helped, but for the first 5 years, when we kept seeing the first three videos, the Go Fast Gimbal and the Tic Tac, that's all we had. I think it got a little ridiculous that we were still basing on that. We know the government has more. They've admitted that they have more. If we had full videos, not 12-second clips or 2-minute clips, but full videos of these interactions with these craft, that would prove a lot more. Because you always hear somebody, and I'm picking on Jeremy Corbell here, and I mean this with all due respect to Jeremy, but you always hear Jeremy come on and say, I've been told that this video, or he'll say, like with a direct manner, this video goes, even though we can't show you it, this video goes on to say that this orb did 360s, stopped at Tim Hortons for a donut, took off, made a withdrawal from the local bank at the ATM, and then went off into the sunset. We
Okay,
always hear that
so
explanation, but we never see it all. I
right,
think what would change that attitude is actually seeing full videos.
And with the showing of those full videos, do you think it would prove out UFO or prove mundane?
Well, I think to a lot of the online public who is critical of this subject, everything would be mundane. There's no convincing them. Okay, there's no convincing them at all. You could put land a UFO right in front of them, and aliens come out and take them onto the ship up to the Milky Way to watch the fireworks on the 4th of July, and they still wouldn't believe it.
Do you think that the videos were edited and released the way they were to demonstrate the potential for UFO, or were they there to add more question? Or what do you think? Why were they edited that way and released that way then?
Well, I think those craft were probably doing things that could not be explained. Or if they were ours, they didn't want to show the technology of what we had going.
So were they pushing a disinformation topic, I guess is what I'm saying? Or
That I don't know, Tim. What do you think? Do you think that they would be pushing a disinformation topic? I would hope. Before you answer, I say I would hope that they aren't. I would hope that they aren't, but I don't have much hope that that is the answer.
do you believe that the carrier of the information would be on the same level as the information? So like if the information is good, then the carrier is good and vice versa? And can we glean anything from how we got the information to determine whether it's real? I guess is what I'm asking. Do you know
Oh,
what I mean?
But that's $1 million question.
Yeah.
That goes into Elizondo. That goes into David Grush. That goes into other whistleblowers who are supposed to believe have our best interests in truth on this subject. And the reality is we don't know. We want to believe David Grush. Do I believe David Grush? Yes, I do. Do I want to believe him? Yes, I do. Is there a chance that he's feeding us with a bunch of lines? Could be. Our holdout on that is the fact that he testified under oath to Congress. And that if he breaks that oath or is caught breaking that oath, that he would be arrested and jailed. Kirkpatrick did the same thing. But remember, Kirkpatrick and Grush could have the same truths, especially if, let's just say, hypothetically, David Grush's emails didn't get through to the Arrow email system. We've seen the Pentagon play games with emails before. Look what they did to former ATIP head Lou Elizondo, where they were literally, when Elizondo came out and the Pentagon kept denying that he ever worked there, they were caught erasing his emails. Could that have happened at Grush with Arrow? Good possibility. The one thing that is for certain is we know that it's not just the United States government who's playing this game, but there are a lot of governments around the world playing the game where they are not wanting this topic to be part of the public moving forward. They want it gone. Okay? This is why, you listen to Tim Burchett last week on the Sean Ryan podcast on YouTube talk about how there's a lot of disinformation agents in the UFO UAP world playing games right now. And some of them don't even know that they're agents, but they're being played. And instead of being paid by money, they're being paid by tips and information. So which side are you on?
Yeah. No, I 100% believe that last statement that you made, in that people want to be on the inside on knowledge. And I do feel like technology has been the topic that everyone's been talking about and covering up. It's Congress's big concern is, where's all the technology that we've been paying for, right? If these programs existed and we were paying for them, we want to see the technology. And according to Kirkpatrick, everything's been bought and paid for, and we have receipts for everything. And so there are no secret programs, according to him. And he checked.
But here's the problem. NASA has said the exact same thing. And we know 100% fact that NASA is lying. There's videos, there's audio recordings, there's paperwork. There are plenty of trails to NASA's study that say that study is worth less than the horse crap in a farmer's field.
Yeah. And I would say the big interest and the draw to this topic right now is probably because they have brand new technology that they've cracked, and it's up there and it's being tested, and they do not want to talk about it.
You hit the nail on the head. You hit the nail on the head. We don't know what's flying at Area 51 or Wright-Patterson. We don't know what's being created down at all of the secret bases in New Mexico. We don't know what they are designing at 29 Palms at Lockheed Skunk Works and other places, Raytheon, Palantir, Boeing, McDonnell Douglas, Grumman. We don't know what they're designing.
We kind of do. We know that you can't see it or hear it, and that it doesn't need to take off. It can just go. Things like that. The stuff that we have captured, that we know isn't alien. That's ours. The stuff that just moves incredibly. It's the new technology. I mean, they closed down all the airports over the US for a little while they tested something from China. Remember?
Yes.
We didn't hear or see a thing, but it happened.
We know a lot of things that are happening.
Yeah.
Little Timmy Senor, really appreciate you coming on in with the UFO report tonight.
My pleasure.
And we'll talk to you in a couple nights' time. Always appreciate you coming on in. And a big thank you tonight to Jason McLean for being a great guest, talking about modern day dinosaurs. Do they still exist? Well, the mystery continues as we say goodnight on Spaced Out Radio to each and every one of you. And thank you for tuning us on in as we say hello to Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal, rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAB, Facebook, Spreaker, LinkedIn, the Space Travelers Club, and on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends,
we're watching.
We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo Train has docked for the night. But soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night. Man, we did that well. That was a good show. Good show. Tomorrow night, Geraldine Orozco, the spiritual you. That'll be fun. All of you being here will be fun as well. So thank you. Thank you very much for being with us. Thank you tonight to Lala, Susan, Flatsix, T-Bone with a hat trick, Louie, Dave, Pam, Joanne, JSCO, CS, and the Debaruni. It's a new fancy dance out there right in the San Francisco Bay Area. The Debaruni, they're calling it. So make sure you check that on out. Mixture of a polka and a swing dance. It's true. I don't make this stuff up, people. What is going on here? Oh, yes. Hold on. Let me just refresh this. Hold on. There we go. Sorry. Yeah. Trimmed it up a bit. I trimmed it up a little bit. Browning. Yeah, I like this hat. Although I don't like how it kind of points out right here. I'm not sure why it's doing that. I'm not sure about that. Oh, the hair is almost, it looks good when it's gelled back. It does look good when it's gelled back. I will say that. All right. There's that. Me and my Browning hat. See, I passed my firearms course this weekend. So I'm kind of happy about that. So now I have to send all my, for our American friends listening in, where you guys can literally go in and get a gun within like 3.5 minutes. Now what happens is I have to go get like passport photos done, send them off to the government. I've had to get a couple of references, which I got from a couple buddies. And I have to send my paperwork in, which takes approximately anywhere from 2 to 8 months for the government to approve me for my firearms license. And only after I get my firearms license, the actual picture, like a ID card, only then can I go into a gun store and purchase a rifle or shotgun. But I passed the test for both what they call non-restricted and restricted firearms up here, which is kind of cool. But I do not have a permit for for prohibited weapons. I apologize for the yawning. Yes, you can be gifted a firearm. Well, Deb's iPad is dying, which means we're going to have to say goodnight. Lord knows we can't do this without Deb. It's 380, 357, a 45. Holy cow. Jessica, you are loaded for bear. Holy cow. Remind me never to piss you off. I got a buddy of mine who trades guns legally, and he picked up a Weatherby shotgun for me that he thought I would like. So, excuse me. And so once I get my firearms license, then I will purchase that from him. But I have to go get a storage safe for it. Because in Canada, it is illegal to have a loaded weapon in your house. Look at Paul Holland. I have a rolled up newspaper and a toy boomerang. Hi, Jurassic Joey. I have bear spray too. You cannot. Well, I shouldn't say you cannot. Handguns are considered a restricted weapon in Canada, which means the only time you can travel with a handgun is when you are taking it to the firing range and then straight back home. It's a fine, usually, Blue Cruise. And in Canada, by law, the minute you become a gun owner, and this rarely ever happens, but they still have the ability to do it. You can, what is it? The police can come and search your home at any time to see if your guns are stored properly. But like I said, I don't know anybody who's ever had that happen to them. You got to do something really stupid for them to do that. Jeremy Womack, how you doing? All right, peeps. I am going to head on out for the night, but thank you for coming on in. Once again, Jeremy or Geraldine Orozco tomorrow night on the show. We will see you then. And thanks for the love. Thanks for spreading the word. Thank you for hitting subscribe. See you tomorrow night.
Stay healthy, my friend.
You too.
If you need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.